It's a given watch some of the shows. Area that I say is probably. I don't see it. I need some help during the meeting. When she texts Beverly, she's going to give you a number. Yep. You know, just have those things in the back of your mind. Those will. All right, but I'm gonna get out of Scott's way, so I'll just give you something. Have these things in the back of your mind. I'm gonna get out of Scott's way.
I didn't get a prompt. I got to say yes.
Did you log in? Up at the top, go click on the person tab up at the top and check your login. Does it say login?
Oh, I thought I was already logged in. I was looking at the.
There's a thing at the bottom that say join the meeting.
Did you log in? Up at the top, click on the person tab up at the top.
I was already in the agenda and everything, so I thought I was already logged in.
Almost there.
Mr. Miglorino, can you hear me?
Almost.
Okay. Did you log into Board Docs? Up at the top of your screen, there's a little person icon.
Yeah,
Hey, if you log in, you'll be able to cast a vote. Did you log in? And at this moment, if you haven't logged in, I can take a verbal yes or no. Do you approve the agenda, adopt the agenda as presented, yes or no? Mr. Migliorino? Well, he's present, so I can't, I can do not present at vote. Is that fine?
That's fine. So, members, by your votes of,
He voted.
you voted? Okay, members, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And next is the Pledge of Allegiance. And I think leading the pledge this evening will be Mr. Charles Moreland. Mr. Moreland, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item B or section B is summary of current events. Superintendent Spurgeon.
Thank you, really. Very busy month since the last time we met. Had several tours. We met with an Amazon representative in our Southwest campus. Talked to them about manufacturing, some drone technology. They were also interested in potentially some healthcare and pharmacy tech, and also some IT security options. And so we're just beginning those conversations with Amazon to be able to move forward maybe with potential partnership there. I did a tour on the Northwest campus with Ottawa University's president, and he brought a couple of his nursing department chairs with him. And so we're still looking to see if we can create some sort of nursing pathway with Ottawa University, including our Northwest campus. So very excited about that. Just finished 2 days with a representative from Las Cruces, Mexico, who toured all 4 of our buildings. He's looking to start a CTE program in Las Cruces. So he was asking us about how we started and all our challenges and successes and how we execute partnerships, curriculum, pathways, all those kinds of things. Great meeting last couple of days with him. Had our West-MEC Southwest Campus scoping walk with BWS. So we have some good information for them to begin drafting designs. Had a tour at our Northwest campus with Samuel Pena, who is with the city of Glendale. And he is going to be connecting us with our power sports and the new Mario Andretti indoor go-kart track, which will be coming just north of the Top Golf facility there. And so we're excited to get that off and running as soon as we get a representative from the go-kart track there. Right now, it's just their attorneys and the legal folks that are there, but they are moving ground. One day I went by there and there was a field of dreams. The next day you walk out, it's nothing but dirt. So we know it's coming pretty quickly. We met with Pipeline AZ, which is, if you don't know much about Pipeline AZ, it's really the career and technical education research arm of career interest for students. And we're looking to see if there's a way that we might be able to integrate that into my career literacy 2.0 vision. And so we're continuing talks with them, which we're really excited about. We met with the City of Surprise Economic Development Team and Project Element to talk about a potential employer or a company coming in to the Surprise City. And they're always interested in what we could do in the workforce area to provide them new employees and the initial technician kinds of things. So very excited about that as well. Met with Chris Camacho, President and CEO of Greater Phoenix Economic Council, to introduction for the GPEC Council membership. We did a site walk and discussion with SPS Plus at the Agua Fria High School site. So we have some pretty good plans for them to begin designs for that piece of property there. One of the couple of new things, maybe they're not new, maybe they're just restarts, but we're planning to have a legislators breakfast for West-MEC and legislators only this fall. And then a mayor's breakfast, the potential some councils that may not have mayors representing their cities for breakfast as well, to begin to keep them updated on what's going on so we can share information back and forth. And then maybe something new that we haven't done before or not for a while. We're establishing quadrant meetings with our 49 building principals So we'll split that up into 4 quadrants. Those that send students to specific quadrants are going to be meeting with either the principal or their leadership teams to get some feedback, to share information about West-MEC, so we can continue to stay updated on the needs and interest of our schools that we serve. So that's going to be an interesting conversation and a productive one as well. I did a presentation at the annual West-MEC rep meeting where I provided an update for West-MEC and an overall overview of West-MEC for those that were new of what we do here in career and technical education. We met with Australia Mountain Community College Adult Ed Programs Director, looking to see how we might align West-MEC adult programs with EMCC programs so that we're not duplicating efforts in areas in which we don't duplicate. There's some that are just natural duplications. We want to make sure that what we do well, we do for ourselves. So EMCC and West-MEC can start looking at what areas of adult education that we can do that matriculate into the programs that they would have there on their campuses, which was a phenomenal conversation. The next piece we had, CJ and I have participated in the initial kickoff of the Academy's model concept for Agua Fria High School, Union High School District. And so that process is moving because we're looking to move to academies in some form or fashion for Agua Fria, which will be one of the biggest reasons for their bond issue coming up in November, for them to be able to construct some new academy sites. Was introduced at the Surprise City Council meeting about a week and a half or so ago as a new GPEC board member. And then last but not least, we just had a phenomenal NCLA webinar yesterday talking about our partnership between West-MEC, UTI. We had a graduate of West-MEC there who's now in the UTI program. To make a long story short, if you don't pay for anything going to UTI, it costs you about $49,000 to $50,000. And because of our partnership, our agreement, and scholarships and the reimbursements, he's now going to be receiving up to $15,000 above what it would cost for him to actually go to UTI. So it's about a $65,000 turnaround with one of our students, and he's just outstanding. So we did that national webinar, which from my understanding and what I was told, it was the largest amount of signups for a webinar that the NCLA has actually held. So with that being said, it's been really, really busy. We got so much on the calendar that I can't even tell you. So next month I'll have a whole lot more for you to talk about.
Dr. Spurgeon, thank you very, very much for your updates. Let's move on to governing board updates. Members, anyone would care to share any information, news relevant to West-MEC? Any members? Mr. Garcia.
So I was brought into a really interesting discussion about apprenticeships and about pre-apprenticeships. And then pre-apprenticeship is people getting qualified to take advantage of a registered apprenticeship through our Department of Labor program. And then the conversation was the CTEDs, and West-MEC was brought up, EVET and these other CTEDs. And the idea is, if a student is a struggling student in a high school where they don't get, they're not qualified to attend the CTE. How are we, or do we have a pathway for that student to take advantage of courses like construction or things that are not really college career level, but are more trades level? Because that would go into a different world rather than a degree. It would go into an apprenticeship, then to a career level job, or maybe to a union, or on off to being well paid and everything. So the question was, is the CTE the best place for that? So that would be something that maybe we could talk about, is how we qualify a pre-CTE or a pre-apprenticeship opportunity that is skills or trades not associated with our career tree that goes to the community colleges, but something that goes to more of the apprenticeship program.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Mr. Miglerino, let me not forget you online. Do you have anything that you would like to share? Okay. Any other members? Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, I ran into my neighbor at the store, and he's a senior now, I believe. And I'm very excited about joining the electrical trade program at the Southwest campus. Initially, he was aiming for the motorsports one, but I'm guessing maybe he got selected for this other one. But he says he's very excited and looking forward to finishing off that program.
In fact, if you get a chance to visit the Southwest campus, it's a little in disarray, you would think, but
Mhm.
they're redoing the entire wall, so it matches what you would see at the Northeast campus
Mm.
with all the electrical boxes and all the student learning centers.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're mapping that out, so eventually it's gonna look just like the Northeast campus, which is gonna be fantastic.
When is that expected to be done?
I saw all of the steel braces, barriers up on the wall, so it's gonna take some time, and I think what happened at the Northeast campus, I believe the students actually put that together, so it's probably gonna be a work in progress.
Mhm.
So the students are gonna be putting up those student learning modules up on the walls probably themselves, which to me would be a great learning
Yeah.
experience for them.
Absolutely.
So I would assume they'll be done when they're done.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Any other members?
Yeah,
Yes. Susan.
I attended the fire science orientation on August 17th, and that was a lot of fun seeing it. The room was, there was a lot of students there. I mean, it was filled to capacity. And just watching the faces and everybody there that was, they're really excited to be there. I also attended the CTE directors meeting on August 11th, and I attended the ASBA 3-day law conference. There were several classes that I attended, navigating controversial issues. They talked about Title VII and Title IX on discussion on sexual harassment. And then one was legal questions or a business decision and how to tell the difference between the two. And then library materials and the law and how they ensure that libraries continue to be places of growth. And then legal and legislative updates and so on and so forth. And I have to say that I really, while I did get something out of it, it was very, very partisan. That really surprised me, how partisan it was. But with that, and then I have a friend that also he goes down to help the homeless. He attends to their needs and he attends to their wounds and things like that. There may be stab wounds or whatever kind of issues they have. And so one of our West-MEC students goes down with him every single Saturday. He's in the EMT program. And his name is Wyatt Bromley. And I just think he needs to be commended for what he's doing. So I want to personally meet him.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Straka, anything from you?
Good, thank you.
Okay, and I would just like quickly two things. I'd like to thank Dr. Spurgeon for coming down to visit me at Grand Canyon University. Certainly to conduct our agenda planning, but also to discuss opportunities and just get a general update on things that are happening at West-MEC, as well as potential opportunities in the future. One other thing, I attended the JLAC committee meeting, the joint committee meeting today. I went there because my wife serves on that committee, and it was very informative because the Auditor General, primarily they focused on rural schools and issues in compliance. And I would just highly recommend, it was a very long meeting. We had to bail out a little early because I needed a ride to West-MEC. But for board members and for staff, there are some real interesting issues and points of law that we will encounter. And I think it would be really good for board members to, view that for a couple of the presentations. And I can provide that link to Ms. Brown, or you can find it under interim committees at azledge.gov. So that's it for me. Okay, thank you, everyone. Next item is call to the public, and we have one speaker, Ms. Linda Maggi, and we welcome you to the podium. You have 3 minutes.
Right there in asterisk.
And let me just kind of blow this up a little bit. There is a statement that I have to read. Mr. Strucker, my bifocals, could you please read that statement for me?
At this time, the public, this is the time for the public to comment on matters that may be of interest to the board. Members of the board may not discuss these items that are not specifically identified on the agenda, therefore, and pursuant of ARS 3843.01H. Actions taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to any criticism or scheduling the matter for further consideration and discussion at a later date in order to facilitate accomplishing the business of the district in a timely manner. It's a 3-minute limit and will be imposed for each individual or group addressing the board.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and I will need to adjust my height of my computer next time. Thank you. Ms. Maggi, please begin.
Okay, thank you. My name is Linda McGee. I'm actually an on-call sub for West-MEC. The reason I'm here is I don't want to be here. Why am I here? The reason I'm here is because I have tried to approach this matter initially with Northwest Campus where an issue occurred about 6 months ago. And unfortunately, my acting supervisor, who was actually the so-called team lead, there decided not to involve themselves when I had issues with students during my 2 to 3 day stay that I was intended to teach. Students not following the lesson plan, they were not following student requirements and responsibilities, much as what they themselves said that they would do and what their parents said that they would do when they would be in class. When I was subbing for essentially medical assisting, these students were intended to spend a good solid 2 days working on projects to put together a PowerPoint and instruct other students, you know, how to do certain things as if they were a patient. When I asked these students questions about medical law and other things that they were also supposed to study and be a part of for those 2 to 3 days, they had absolutely no clue, but they were very insistent that they had done all that work and everything was done ahead of time. When I handed the handouts out to them, they decided that instead of reading the material, they were just going to look for the answers and not read the material. And I said, please, let's not do that. Let's just involve ourselves with the program. Instead, they've decided to then just go off into Instagram videos on their phones. And I said to them, I said, when I came to the subbing assignment on Northwest Campus, I said, do you enforce the phone rules? No phone rules. Yes, we do. Okay. So I said to the students, let's put the phones up. Let's involve ourselves. Long story short. So what happened is nothing got done. There was one student who was way out of hand. She had to be sent down to the team lead, the campus administrator's office. The campus administrator took me to the side and in students earshot and eye shot, and then basically said, okay, I think you're out of here. This is day 2, the middle of the day. Long story short, nothing happened. And then I was dismissed. They came back for the second session and I was gone. Long story short, they said that they would use me. And that's why I renewed my fingerprint card for $105, not more than 3 months prior. And they chose not to. And so I'm not really seeing a lot. I would like my $105 reimbursed for my fingerprint card for the simple fact that they've chosen not to use me. And Superintendent Sturgeon basically agreed with them. Point is, students don't have a right to interfere with an instructor. And I taught them with respect, please put your phone away, let's involve yourself. They chose not to do it. Instead, I was dressed down by the superintendent and nobody else seemed to have any interest in taking this matter.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comments. Thank you. Next section is information and discussion. And we have the Buckeye Union High School District CTE program report. You're welcome.
Thanks. Good evening. Hey, really quick, my name is Mike New. I am the CTE director for Buckeye. I know several of you. quick plug for Buckeye. I handed out all of our programs to you guys. My card's on there. We would love to have you visit. I'm a great tour guide, by the way. I'll take you around, take care of you for lunch too. We'd love to have you. So anytime. Today, we want to show you one of our programs. It's stagecraft, which they're going to argue with that. It used to be tech theater. The state changed it to stagecraft, but these two are phenomenal teachers. Trisha Schultz is from Australia Foothills. Michael Haslinger is from Buckeye, and I'm going to let that take over.
Thank you, Mr. New. Thanks so much for having us. We really appreciate you sharing some valuable time with us. Mr. New told us that we had no more than 3 hours with you. Out of respect for your time, we're going to try to keep it to 10 minutes, despite what he's yeah.
And I'd like to introduce, I brought two of our students with us. This is Parson Lloyd and Kelly Guboltz. And they are two of our technical theater students who are also active and involved in our Skills USA and CTS. So later, if you have questions, they'll be here to answer them.
As Mr. New said, we teach stagecraft in the CPE program, which previously was technical theater. And someday I hope we can call it entertainment design, technology, and production, because as you'll see, we do so much more than stagecraft or even technical theater. This is a career that opens up the whole world. The way we do it at Buckeye is a sort of a three-pronged approach. We have our classroom curriculum, the theater program, the club, and then the career and technical service offering, which for us is Skills USA. We're here. Mrs. Schultz, would you like to talk about yourself?
Briefly, I've been teaching for a really long time. I've enjoyed teaching theater and technical theater. This is my 28th year. I absolutely love it. I believe in CTE and I believe in education.
I haven't been doing it as long. So I'm currently at Buckeye Union High School. This is my 7th year in education. Before this, I was a professional lighting designer. I continue to try to work in that field as much as I can. Right now I'm designing halftime shows for the Cardinals and then freelancing wherever else. I have a great day rate. Feel free. I'm pursuing my master's in education at the University of Houston because this is where I've decided I want to be, is in education. Our classes are different than a lot of the other classes that are happening on campus by necessity. We have to incorporate all of the literacy and all of the math and all of the core curriculum, but that ends up looking different for us, which is one of the great things about theater is you can't do a show if you don't know how to read the script. But even if you know how to read the script, it's just the blueprint. It's just for the musicians, it's the paper that the music is written on and not the music itself. What we do is take that and build the cathedral and play the symphony and teach our students how to do all of those things. We have 12 standards. I'm not going to bore you with them all. What I think is interesting about our 12 standards is that each one of them could be a terminal degree in and of itself. You can get a master's degree in technical education, a master's degree in lighting design, a master's degree in costume design, in dramaturgy, in directing, in on and on and on. So we are a starting place for a lot of those skills. We also get to get our hands on to a lot of equipment. Currently, the Arizona Department of Ed has this as our equipment list. It's very small, both the font and the list. We're working on that. I've been in conversations this week with them to see if we can make this a little bit more robust, because right now, as you'll see, it really does limit it to stagecraft. But we can't do a lot of this without you guys. The equipment that we're using is coming a lot from you guys, and it makes a world of difference. So thank you. In our classrooms, we have the boring stuff. We've got the lectures, we've got the projects, the research. That's going to look like what you see in a typical high school classroom. But we try to get out of that room as much as humanly possible, because you can hear my voice now. I am not thrilling. Ms. Schultz is much more engaging than I am. But we want to get out of the room. We want to get our hands dirty and into things. We get into the scene shop. We build stuff. You can see here, students are operating the lighting console and running a show. We're getting the costumes, the makeup built for things. We're teaching them about how to do the audio, how to fly things over people's heads without killing each other. huge amount of content that we have to get through in our 2 semesters with our students, 3 if they go into a practicum class. And we try to maximize that ability for everybody so that students who learn best by hearing can listen to this happen. There are students that are going to read better than others. We try to get in as many guest speakers to prove that really this is a career. This is a way that people make a living. We've had Broadway stage managers come in. I've had Peter Sagal from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR come and be a guest speaker for us. Professional actors, touring audio engineers. A good friend of mine is the audio engineer on Hamilton on one of the national tours. So he'll zoom in from wherever he is in the world. Yeah, and we try to open that up to all the schools so that they can get stuff. We do a lot with data because we have to. And our data continues to show that our students are learning. But it's not just the stuff on the paper. It's not just the BMAs, the tests. We want to see them actually build something and create. A pop quiz for you, because now you're in my classroom. Welcome. Your technical director wants you to clear all the instruments off an electric. What is the appropriate strategy for reweighting a single purchase line set? A, remove all the fixtures. Oh boy. Oh, hey. Remove 3 fixtures for every adjustment in the counterweight. Remove all the fixtures before removing any of the counterweight. 1-to-1 ratio exchange. Return the batten to pipe weight, or use the lock rail to hold the line set in place while working. Members of the board, would you like to answer?
It's B.
You think it's B?
I'm gonna say C only because if you don't know, they always say C.
It was B. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Yeah. I won't go through all of them, but you can see we're constantly trying to keep the kids engaged and thinking of things. In their labs, they get to use state-of-the-art equipment. The lighting console there that the students are using is literally brand new. It is the cutting edge. It's state-of-the-art. It is what's happening out in the world, on Broadway, in tours, on corporate events right now. And then we try to find some other ways because you're not always going to have a $30,000 lighting console at your disposal. So sometimes we try to figure out how to do costuming with trash bags and paper towel. And it's teaching them about collaboration and problem solving and resource management. We get them using real tools in real ways. And then we also have to have them find some creative solutions to interesting problems. For a show we were doing, we needed the background to be black and crinkly and see-through. The students discovered that weed cloth that you would put in your garden was the right type of background for that. Problem was it didn't crinkle very well. So we had the students spend a couple of days, how do you crinkle weed cloth? Turns out that you put it in a box and you stand on it. Heat guns were a fun option, didn't work. Sometimes it's the simple things. They're learning skills that they're able to take other places. Sweeping and mopping is one of the first lessons we use, and I've had students get hired in jobs because they learned how to mop appropriately. We get into marketing and PR. Later, there'll be a video that Carson's created for us. It is far too long for now. If we were doing the 3-hour class, we showed the video. I encourage you to take a look at it later.
It's fabulous.
But the students are learning how to reach out into the world and market the product they're doing. As we mentioned, the literacy, the rigging. And then we're producing shows because that's really what it's all about, is the product at the end. Theater is a great education tool because it demands a product and it demands a deadline. The audience won't wait. They don't care if your light doesn't work. You have to figure it out. And we provide a safe and interesting place for students to do that problem solving in a high stakes, safe way. And then we produce. We put on big shows. We support not only the theater program, but the music program. This is a dance program photo. We're trying to get our students incorporated in all of the different disciplines. But wait, there's more. Because it's not just all of the stuff that we're used to doing. We're involved in everything. We try to get out of the schools. We're trying to produce as much as we possibly can. Our students are sleep deprived in the best way possible. Carson is barely awake right now. But what I think really speaks to the success and the importance of our program is that our students come back to us, and they are part of the community that we have formed. I recently had a student head off to Carnegie Mellon University, which is one of the elite theater schools in the world. It's in the top 3, and she is rocking it there. We've had students go off and work around the country. Steppenwolf Theater is a Tony Award-winning theater in Chicago. We have students working there. At the Herberger in downtown Phoenix, they stay local. They go to NAU. They've made the news with their costuming design, which took them to NASA, because the things that we learn in theater are applicable everywhere. They do high-level makeup. They do high-level sound design. They do high-level costuming. They're busy. The people that we get to work with go off and do great things. And then they come back again and they share what they've learned out in the world with our students, whether that is, hey, you should really go look at Carnegie Mellon University. You can do it from our little school here in Buckeye, to, hey, here's a career that you could take. They share their perspectives. This is the really great video that I would encourage you to watch later. Mr. Schultz, do you want to talk about?
Absolutely. We have our students get involved and participate in everything that we can do. We work with Arizona Thespians, but we also are very involved and active with RCTSO Skills USA. We encourage our students to compete, to participate in leadership and all kinds of development activities. I'll just talk fast. We've had lots of students become state officers. That first one was one of our national officers. And we, like I said, we've had a lot of them become state officers. The one on the bottom right, she's a current state officer this year. They're doing really great things. We love to come to West-MEC training. Our groups are coming tomorrow to the next building. We're excited to be here. These guys will be here. We go to Fall Leadership Conference, State Leadership Camp, all those exciting things. These are all of our kids last year competing at state, and Buckeye and Estrella regularly take the medals. We're kind of awesome. We don't mind saying it. And regionals, we all kind of dominated. Do you want me to keep talking or do you want to talk?
Oh, it's entirely up to you.
Okay, I will talk a little bit about this. As Michael said, so many of our areas really could lead to a terminal degree, a full career, an exciting thing to do. We're teaching all of these kids all of these things, but we do a lot of different things besides just plays. Everybody thinks stagecraft, they think of plays. We create theater productions, but we also create rock concerts. And yeah, I threw the kids in there because it's awesome. There are lighting designers who work specifically in museums or in high-end hotels in Vegas who, you know, light the restaurant, light the display, light whatever. Meow Wolf, that's a lighting designer's dream there, the art we create. And we light conferences all over the place, including ACTEAZ and Skills USA, not our kids particularly, but those people that are creating lighting, making sure that you are heard, all those things at the events that we go to. Those are technical theater students.
And we couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Thanks. Any questions for us?
Thank you. Thank you very much. A very lively, fast-paced. I think both of you, you've been on the stage at some point.
You have to, they make you do it no matter.
Yes. You know, I was just wanting to see if your students would like to make a couple of brief comments.
So for Skills USA at Estrella, I am our Skills USA Technical Theater president, and I've been doing technical theater there since my freshman year, which I actually moved from California back right before my freshman year, and then I came here, and my old theater teacher actually emailed her and was like, hey, I'm coming there. We give him a spot and be like, hey, welcome, because I knew no one. And yeah, I pretty much found a home here, and then this has kind of taken me all the way through my years. Now I am working as the company stage manager, marketing director, business chief person. I'm doing the lighting design for the winter dance concert coming up, so that's super exciting.
As part of his fine arts seal.
Yes. But yeah, I've kind of just taken it through and ran with it all my 4 years. I'm a senior now, and yeah.
And I am Kelly Boultz. I'm the vice president of our technical theater chapter. And Skills USA, or Tech Theater and Skills USA have opened up so many opportunities with me, including running for office in Skills USA and just making sure that you feel comfortable in any situation you'll be put in, since we're already out there doing this, so.
And that's one last thing too. We have rentals in our buildings all the time and these kids are running things for the public already. So it's really exciting.
So, thank you, and I just have to take a moment here to reminisce from way back when in high school, when I was started out as a spotlight person for Oklahoma, worked my way up to a lighting manager with a massive lighting board, and we used to use the arc, the carbon arcs for lighting, and then finally to backstage manager. And both of our daughters, one graduated with a collegiate degree in musical theater, the other in music. And so this is near and dear to my heart. And my understanding is in Buckeye, the industry, the film industry is coming to Buckeye. And so I know this was legislation a couple of years ago, and it did get through. And I know there's some significant tax credits that are attached to it, but hopefully it will spur not only economic opportunity for Arizona, but also jobs for the people that and students that you all are preparing. So thank you very much. Members, any other questions? Mr. Garcia.
So in your program, you're a senior in high school. Is there what's the next step in your career tree? What happens now?
Yeah, so for me, my path wasn't necessarily theater. So I'm not really going into theater, I'm going into business and like finance and economics. A lot of ways. But yes, so like with being in theater, I've learned a ton about just kind of like managing a business and managing with like clients and stuff. Like she mentioned, we have rentals and I'm one of our rental chiefs. So I would work with clients and kind of the liaison between me and whoever the rental is there. So they'll ask me like, hey, what do you guys need from us? What do we need from you? And I'll kind of go from that, but I also learn how to like manage money and then manage all of our like shopping lists for different shows.
So I would suggest there is an organization called the Arizona Commerce Authority. And they have a backlot organization run by Earl Jones, not James Earl Jones. Forget her first name, but anyways, so he's our president of that organization. And he has a database that he put together for people who understand what you're doing with lighting and building, and they work them as gig workers. And it happens, right, it's a database. As these companies come in, they associate themselves with the state. They get handed up Matthew Earl Jones, that's what it is. So it gets handed off to Matthew, and then Matthew goes to the site and starts making phone calls and putting things together. So if anything, I would imagine, especially if you're going to be in school in Arizona, if you need side jobs or summer breaks or anything like that, I would definitely recommend that you get tapped into that.
Not for sure.
That's fantastic. And we're trying to connect them also with all those people. Gamage loves to hire our students when they come to ASU, all those kind of different things. But you know, if we reached out to you, perhaps we could get that contact information.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having us.
Thanks for your time.
So next up is recognitions and celebrations.
Stephen, let me jump in real quick before we do this. We're gonna try to make this kind of a common themed agenda item, and what I thought we might do is if when we have students that receive recognition, or those maybe our partner schools, we might ask you if they're in your geographic region, if you would like to make that presentation, so if you could be a little bit more in part of kind of what you do, recognizing those that you serve in your constituency. So if nobody's opposed to that, we'd like to make this a regular item and give the board the opportunity to recognize some of the folks that reside within our own geographic footprint. So
very good.
Board Chair Pingarelli, Dr. Spurgeon, governing board members. Well, I think I've officially been upstaged, to use a theater term, by that incredible group just before us. But to add to the power of career technical education, I wanted to share with you this evening a couple celebrations. That first celebration being each year in the state of Arizona, the Capital Times recognizes leaders that have truly contributed to the growth of our state. These are people that really get the work done, that are the engines behind growth in the state of Arizona, making this the place that we all want to live and grow our families in, really improving quality of life. This year, our very own Dr. Spurgeon has been named the 2023 Leader of the Year in Public Policy Education category. Dr. Spurgeon is included with a formidable group of honorees this year. And imagine all of the educational leaders in the state of Arizona, many of them at it years and years. So Dr. Spurgeon had huge competition in this event and was recognized by those leaders and policymakers in our state as truly being the educational leader of the year. This year's recognition will be an awards luncheon on September 26th at 11:30. And in addition, Dr. Spurgeon and his work at West-MEC will be profiled in a special edition of Arizona Capital Times. I know you'll join me in congratulating Dr. Spurgeon for this amazing thing. And just to highlight though, earlier in his remarks, which are a testament to this award, but he mentioned the NCLA webinar that him and CJ Williams and our partners with UTI hosted yesterday. And Dr. Spurgeon said, he had heard that it was one of the most well attended. I just really want to underscore that. I serve as the NCLA board president. We've had national webinars now for the last 2 years. Up till yesterday, the highest registered event was 13, 13. Yesterday, we had 58 at one time on and registered. So that totally blew the record out of the water. Really lots of national attention on West-MEC as a result of Dr. Spurgeon's leadership. So happy to see that recognized by Capital Times this year. So congratulations, Dr. Spurgeon.
Could the board get the electronic copy of the Capital Times article? It would just be nice to see.
In addition to Dr. Spurgeon, this evening, we just really wanted to recognize some of the leadership within West-MEC and those committing to leadership programs. The Association for Career and Technical Education of Arizona, ACT Arizona, has a fellows program. It's a robust 2-year leadership development program that really grows the advocacy in CTE professionals to be able to advocate within their communities for the impact of career and technical education. This year, we have a couple new inductees that are listed there for you, as well as a couple inductees that are in their second year. And this evening, we have a couple of them here with you, but on the agenda there, you will see in their first year, Jolise Meadows, who's a recruiter here at West-MEC, Paige Quinn, who works with our exceptional student services population here at West-MEC, and Sabrina Poggi, a counselor at the Southwest campus, have all committed to their first year in the fellows program. And then in their second year, continuing, Lisa Fleming at our Southwest campus, our veterinary teacher, and Jason Croft also in exceptional student services. And I know Paige and Jason are here. Will you guys please stand up? They commit lots of time. In addition, they champion the scholarship program for the association, raising money to help students continue on after high school CT into college and career opportunities in career and technical education. So thanks for your commitment to your growth and advocacy of career and technical education. Thank you, board members.
Thank you. So next up, Mr. Williams, legislative and business partnership update. Thank you.
Chairman Pingarelli, members of the board, Superintendent Spurgeon, thank you once again for the opportunity to provide some updates on our legislative efforts as well as business partnerships. And I think the overarching theme is that West-MEC continues to really lead in Arizona, certainly in the West Valley. And I just hear echoing in my mind, Dr. Spurgeon, his chant of just leaders lead. And sometimes you're like, can we sit this one out? But nope, leaders lead. So as such, West-MEC has really not only been ahead of some of the conversations in workforce development as well as career and technical education, but we've become a convener of partners and other stakeholders in this space, which I think really is a testament to our leadership role in Arizona. It wasn't about a week and a half ago that we were meeting with Estrella Mountain Community College, talking about regionalized efforts to really equip TSMC and other manufacturing companies with the skilled talent that they're going to need. And it was mentioned in that meeting how, everybody just hasn't come together around this. We've got some really good things happening, and West-MEC's involved in multiple conversations with different stakeholders, but we really need this all to come together. And it was not even a week later that we convened at TSMC. Was this just yesterday, I believe, just yesterday, with Scott Holman, the head of HR. And for the first time in one of these conversations, Brian Harrison, the president of TSMC Arizona, along with some of their counterparts from Taiwan that are here really getting this off the ground and leading the charge to develop their workforce in Arizona. It included other partners from the Community College District, GCU, NAU, the Arizona Workforce Development System, Arizona Work Phoenix was there. And it just was a powerful conversation because it was the first time all of these players had been in the same room with a huge employer talking specifics. What does this look like? And what I thought was interesting was from Brian Harrison talking about how you all can't go out and try and do this all yourselves. Like Maricopa, you're not going to be the sole solution. West-MEC, you're not going to be the sole solution. This is going to require a collaborative, holistic approach. And West-MEC, you'll identify where you fit into this system in developing the workforce of tomorrow, specifically with advanced manufacturing. And we can guarantee that that's going to be the best for that piece of the workforce need. Maricopa will have theirs, the university system will have theirs. And this was the first time that they really kind of showed their cards and shared job descriptions, specific information about what their needs are going to be and what that looks like. Entry-level techs to engineers, and then talking about like there's really this middle range need as well, like someone with maybe the skill and knowledge of an engineer or some of the intuitive nature of an engineer, but who may be more willing to be hands-on in the projects. And he referenced like a 3-year degree, something in the middle. So we talked about that, and he talked about specific to all of these job descriptions was this need for almost an IT background. We picture advanced manufacturing as you're on the floor in the lab or in the fab working on this equipment, when in reality, much of this is done remotely via a computer, and you're interacting with a software that controls the equipment. You might be on, I'll say Zoom, but with an engineer that's kind of chiming in and helping you along the process too. But a lot of it is remote via a computer screen. So I thought that was interesting. It was very informative. We've got plans to meet again September 28th. And then future plans beyond that to have like a full day retreat with this group coming together to really start to put together a regional strategy around workforce in manufacturing. I'll piggyback on that conversation. And yesterday, so Arizona Commerce Authority is tasked with championing the semiconductor workforce task group, CHIPS task force. And a couple of weeks ago, they invited West-MEC to present kind of what we do in preparing the workforce in this space. And Stephen Welch, Jarrett Guy, Julie Rodriguez attended that, provided a presentation on behalf of West-MEC. And it really resonated with the group there. And quick follow-up from President and CEO Sandra Watson inviting, she was hosting, ACA hosted yesterday, the CHIPS program office here in Phoenix. And she thought of no better place to host this group than at West-MEC's Northeast campus. So the Department of Commerce CHIPS program office was out at our Northeast campus yesterday, along with Phoenix Mayor Kate Gallego and some staff from Senator Kelly's office and Governor Hobbs' office. And it was just a well-attended event. They were very impressed with the facility and our students that participated. I want to thank Mr. Welch and Mr. Swarnick in the Northeast campus for hosting and just really showcasing West-MEC on that level. Tomorrow, again, Leaders Lead. We are, we've invited the Department of Education leadership to join us at the new Nestle site here in Glendale to, and there's a lot of benefits from doing this and being the convener in that space, one of which, this is our first time actually being out at the site and being able to see it in person, and we'll be able to really create some alignment with our programs and Nestle. But having some leaders from ADE there with us will give them a firsthand view of what that strategic partnership looks like between West-MEC and business and industry. It'll give business and industry a firsthand view of our relationship with decision makers in the state of Arizona. And it will help inform as we talk about fourth year funding and regional and demand lists and things of that nature. They'll ADE and others will be able to go directly from industry where the need is and what that need looks like. So that will help. We may send out 60,000 surveys and get 300 responses, but if we can get decision makers here in person to see those connections, I think it's pretty powerful. And I missed the beginning of it, and I apologize. I was in the Glendale Public Policy Committee meeting, so I'm hoping I'm not reiterating things that you've already shared, Dr. Spurgeon. I'm usually here for your update, but did you talk about the academies in Agua Fria?
Yeah, we do. We spent our first initial meeting with them.
Okay, so we have been a part of this effort with Agua Fria Union High School District since the beginning. And they're all in on this academies model that really is modeled after the Nashville Academies model. And this year is the year under the guidance and consultation of Ford Next Generation Learning, where they start to involve other stakeholders, West-MEC, City of Goodyear. I believe we've got some community college representation there, West-MEC's there to really help take this to the next level. So we're excited to continue on that journey with them and look forward to seeing what happens this year with that. Government affairs, we've got a couple of good events coming up. Leaders Lead, West Valley Mayor's Breakfast, October 4th, 8 to 9:30. That is West-MEC's event. This will be the first time to my knowledge that we've ever convened West Valley mayors to really, one, hear and learn about West-MEC and what we're, the role we play in the West Valley, not just in education and CTE, but in workforce development, but also to glean their insights and how they feel we can best support their priorities for their communities. So we're looking forward to that. We have the Superintendent's Institutional Advisory Commission, October 5th. That's 11:30 to 1. Again, this is a cross-section of stakeholders from education, economic development, business and industry that come together to really inform the superintendent's work at that high district level. So that group has just grown stronger and stronger over the last year since we've really reconvened. And we're looking forward to getting some input from this group as well on the architectural work for the Southeast campus. So part of that effort is getting stakeholder input, and this will be an opportunity to get some stakeholder input as well. Pushing out a little bit later, November, we're going to have a West Valley legislative breakfast. Historically, we have worked with other CTEDs to just host kind of a statewide legislative update. It's not been very well attended, so we're breaking off on our own and doing a West Valley Legislative Breakfast in person, where we can, as we meet, this is kind of the season where Dr. Spurgeon and I will be meeting one-on-one with legislators and having conversations about West-MEC and really learning from their expertise and insights at the Capitol. But through those conversations, we'll give them a personal invitation to come to this legislative breakfast in November. We've already done that this week. Just a couple days ago, we met with Senator Frank Carroll, had a great conversation, always informative, always educational. And we're able to invite him to that. He put it on his calendar as we were there. I saw him do it, so he'll be there in person.
And I told him what one of those breakfasts where it's like muffins for mom and donuts for dad. It's gonna be like a world breakfast, like bacon, eggs, sausage, hash browns.
My last update, and this always reads quicker in my mind as I'm putting these notes together. It's going a little bit long, but Dr. Spurgeon, I believe last month mentioned the Arizona Economic Education Commission. It was really in its infancy, nothing official at that time, but since has really gained some steam. And again, as a convener, we really brokered the involvement of TSMC and Scott Holman on the Arizona Education Economic Commission. And there's going to be a press conference and kind of launch of the commission on October 12th. I want to make sure I get it right. Thursday, October 12th, 10 a.m. at the Arizona Department of Education. This will involve members of the commission, as well as some of the business and industry members of that commission, and representatives from the Swiss delegation and the Swiss ambassador to the United States will be there and speaking, along with a lot of this has really been modeled after the Swiss apprenticeship model. So that's been the impetus for some of these priorities within the commission, but we'll have representatives there from the Swiss delegation to speak as well. So we look forward to that. Lots going on. And again, I think West-MEC continues to demonstrate our leadership in certainly the region and beyond. Stand for any questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Gibson.
So on all these invites, I really don't hear the Workforce Arizona Council or the local workforce development boards of Maricopa County or City of Phoenix. Are we engaged with them at all?
We are. So specifically with Arizona at Work, Maricopa County, we have had involvement through really workforce convenings out of OEO and West-MEC and some of the work that they're doing. We've worked closely with Steve Clark, who's their Workforce Board Executive Director. Recently, because of the City of Phoenix lead in working with TSMC and the semiconductor space, we've began and expanded some of that work with the Arizona Work City of Phoenix. And Lucetta, as well as Deb Furlong from the apprenticeship side, I think have been working with them more recently. But I would say for the last year, we've engaged with Arizona Work Maricopa County at least 4 or 5 times in different venues.
So I would suggest remembering there are 2 sections to that. One section is the business service provider, the other section is the council. They're not one and the same. So Steve Clark would be the executive director, but then there's also a chair of the council. And so the council is the one that makes the directive decisions and policy adjustments to the services provided and how they operate. So I would suggest you invite council members to include the service providers in both the City of Phoenix, Maricopa County, and then the Workforce Arizona Council is that's what the governor looks at. And in fact, she's been to our last couple of meetings, but that also has Mark Gaspers, who's the board chair there as well. He'd be interested to see this kind of stuff. It just give us more validity, more conversation, and help them to also make decisions on their end as well.
I think it's a great idea. It's great insight and great feedback to include some of those workforce board members and the chairs in some of our invites. Superintendent Institutional Advisory Commission would be another good one. I know we've invited Steve Clark to the upcoming one, but we can expand that to some of the board members. I know Kevin Imes, the state CT director, sits on the Workforce Arizona Council, kind of which is good, I think, to have that CTE voice. And I've heard good things about reorganization of of that council, so. Good feedback, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I was just gonna ask if we could maybe rotate a couple of board members to some of those breakfasts. I mean, we don't want to have too many because then you have an agenda, but maybe a couple and just rotate us around or something, see who's available.
I'll work with Ms. Brown and we'll get that coordinated to ensure we've got you there. That would be great. Thank you so much.
Next on the agenda is student demographic information. Mr. Walsh.
Dr. Pingarelli, Superintendent Spurgeon, Governing Board members, thank you for the opportunity again to talk about our 10th day enrollment. So this is an annual event when we get to share with you what our 10th day enrollment looks like and some of the demographics associated with that. The 10th day is really important in the terms of the school system. Through the first 10 days of enrollment, students are still coming in and going and transitioning. So those numbers are regularly changing by the hour. Once the 10th day hits, we no longer have open enrollment into the program. So things start to stabilize a little bit. So as we compare from year to year, the 10th day is a great place to start to make some of those comparisons. As we talk about these students that you see in front of you and we share these demographics, you'll remember that what we are striving for is for all students to be able to be ready for career pathways that lead to economic independence. And I look forward to it another time, some of your discussions, Mr. Garcia, earlier, because that really does recognize all pathways, right? Whether that be traditional college pathway onto a career that requires a 4-year degree or an apprenticeship or additional training outside of high school. It really is about connecting students to the pathway that ignites their passion, regardless of where that pathway starts. So that's what we're about. But just as a reminder, as we strive to reach all students, including those students that are looking at something other than college pathways, we have very purposeful recruitment strategies. And Marilyn's just going to highlight those again. I know you know our recruitment strategies really well, but to make sure we're getting to all students, Marilyn's just going to highlight 1 or 2 of those before we go into our demographics.
Thanks. So it's just a great day to be here and to be at West-MEC because we really have so many students that applied and got into our programs, and the teachers are happy and our campuses are full and we're ready to start again for next year. So some of the things that we're doing already coming up are counselor grants. You know that we talk about that the counselors out in our member districts and in the charters and the privates and the homeschool moms are really the people that are helping get students in our programs because we're training that trainer through great professional development and different meetings. We're giving those counselors who see their students every day and are in front of them, and they're telling them about the programs that are going on with West-MEC. So I can't say enough about counselors and what they do for students on their own home campuses that get them to come to West-MEC, besides the wonderful satellite programs that they're in on their own campuses as well. Recruitment is near and dear to my heart as well. Inside of student services, we have 3 phenomenal recruiters right now who are out there doing presentations, career fairs. We have our elementary camps, and then we have some elementary counselors in our grants this year. We do van tours, open houses that happen at the campuses here that we have 2 for each one of our campuses, with 40,000 open house cards that got delivered out to sophomores all throughout our member district so that those families can come. So this is just a snippet of recruitment efforts that we really believe have made the difference on filling our programs. And it all leads to this fair and equitable application and allocation process as students get in the program. And I'm sure sometime during the year, I can talk more about this and come back and do a recruitment presentation, but this is just to whet your appetite for the good numbers that Stephen's going to share.
And of course, the goal of that, right, is to make sure that our campuses mirror that of our community, right? We don't want it to be programs that are only for the top 20% of students, right? We want to reach all students. So we want to make sure that our campuses look like our community. And I'm very pleased to share with you that as a result of these recruitment strategies that Marilyn talked about, our 10th day numbers very much do look like our community. So we are a majority minority school district. The majority of our enrollment are students of color. So you can kind of see that ethnicity breakdown. Therefore, and I know Mr. Garcia, you were asking some of those specific questions recently. In the 10-day report that you have on the back, there is a trend that shows you just for the last 3 years, kind of what that looks like. But for the last 3 years, we have been a majority minority school district, with the majority of our students being non-white. Very much mirrors that of our community. We went ahead and included just Maricopa breakdown there for you too. So you'd see that our campuses very much mirror the communities in which the campuses reside. In addition, you can see kind of the breakdown of gender as well. As you would assume, many of these programs track kind of with traditional, enrollment. So in our health pathways, we have more female students than male students. In our transportation pathways, we have more male students than female students. We're always trying to get better at recruitment to, make sure that all students are welcome and invited to programs. But because we have so many health programs at West-MEC, that's why we tip just a little bit more over there towards the female side. And then, of course, you can see our IEP, our exceptional students. That again, this fair and equitable process that Marilyn talked about is a blind process. So we are truly here for all students to come to West-MEC. Something else the board has been, interested in is making sure, right, we're serving our whole community, not just our member school districts, but are we reaching out to our homeschool parents, our charter school families, our parochial school and private school families. And you can see we are again, this runs about that of our community, right? We know just about 18% of students in the West Valley choose something other than their neighborhood traditional high school, which mirrors kind of what you see here as well. This has been, 5 years ago, this number was more around 9%. So this has really grown for us. And Marilyn and her department has had some very purposeful recruitment strategies for that environment. As a matter of fact, next month, Dr. Spurgeon, Marilyn and team are going to be hosting our charter and private school liaisons, our counselors from those communities, really to do some special kind of stuff and special recruitment that Marilyn and Dr. Spurgeon will make sure to invite you in. I think some of you, I know exclusively are coming already, so we're excited to have you at that event.
Steve, we've also invited their executive directors or their superintendents or their folks that lead the district as well. So again, our first attempt but you got to do something. And just sit back and do nothing. And so this will be our first attempt to have a couple of those meetings each year. So we maintain good communication with each of the school districts.
Yeah. Adult education. Sometimes we have this myth when we hear adult education, we think, a bunch of, 40-year-olds on our campuses. You can see that's not quite the case. This is our average age is 24 in our adult programs. You can kind of see that breakdown, very heavily male. Remember most of those programs, aviation, welding, HVAC, tend to attract more male adult students. We do have our pharmacy tech, which has more female, and then we have IT security, which again is more male. So that's that breakdown. Also, mostly students in our adult education that are non-white as well. Again, very much mirroring what you see in our own community, right? Having them in our program, making sure that our campuses look like our community and that we have targeted systems that are attracting everyone and we're reaching all groups within our community is part of it, but we have to make sure that we keep them there. So we also have specific strategies to make sure that we're looking at retention and reducing any of those barriers. And Marilyn was going to highlight 1 or 2 of those for you.
Thank you. So we do have through our multi-systems supports, we have this ongoing identification of monitoring students. In fact, just right now, like we do a 45-day screener, a student success screener that we're just about to put out in order to see how students are doing from the beginning test that they took to come into the program to how they're doing with attendance and and then grades, the quarter grade that's gonna come on. And then those students will be heightened to our counselors and their campus administrators and teachers to be able to make sure, what are we doing in case there is a barrier there, so that we can keep them. If we know something's happening right away in August and September, but we're seeing them finish the program in a one-year program in May, we know that we've followed that student all the way along. Reducing barriers are grants that we've been able to give to our students to get into the program and help pay for registration fees through the good work of the Alliance and many benefactor donators that have come through to do that. And now this transportation grant that CJ's talked to you about, the A+ modernization grant, that we're just tipping our toe into the water to see what that's going to do. We have 2 questions that are gonna, it's gonna be put on our application. And so students will answer those questions for us, and it's going to help us understand, would they have been able to come to West-MEC? Would they even have been applying to West-MEC without the idea that there's some kind of transportation for them to help them, so that we can see what's happening for those students? And then we always just say that we are connected, respected, and safe. And those are the community of growth that happens on each campus through the good work of, again, teachers, counselors, career services, administration, all coming together to make students know that they can feel connected, respected, and safe.
Yeah, this absolutely is where our campuses and our administrators are in the room tonight, and our teachers that are on campus right now, and counselors on campus serving students really shine to make West-MEC stand out. And as a result of that powerful work of the folks behind us and on our campuses this evening, we are doing amazing things. And this is really why part of what makes Superintendent Spurgeon, the leader of the year, is West-MEC is doing what other districts have failed to do, and that is closing achievement gaps here at West-MEC. What you can see here is this is our attendance, retention, completion, right? Students can't achieve if they're not in class. So it's really important that all students are in class with good attendance rates, that we're keeping them in the program, they're completing the programs, because that's the foundation for them being able to achieve. So you can see here, regardless of gender, which is really unique, because as many of you know, in this country, we face a boy performance problem, especially secondary and just post-secondary, with how boys are performing academically. At West-MEC, that's not the case. Our male population, as well as our female population, they're in school, they're staying in school, as well as our students of color. Again, similarly, no real statistical difference to our other students. And because they're in class, they're achieving. So when you look at our state assessments, you can see very similarly, right? Our students of color, our students not of color, are performing at, again, no statistical significance between those performance rates. Same with credentials, right? Because they're staying in class, they're learning, they're doing well on state assessments, they're ready for credentials, they're earning those credentials as well. This is really powerful. This is why Arizona Commerce Authority, brings people out to come and see West-MEC, because we are not only attracting a community or a student body that looks like our community, but we are there making sure that they perform just like everyone else. Of course, because of that, placement also is statistically equal as well, right? Because they're achieving, they're following their dreams, whether those be apprenticeships, whether those be careers, whether those be college, to the same degree. Again, really making sure that all students have access to that American dream and realize economic independence. With that, Marilyn and I are happy to stand for questions.
Thank you. So one of the things that CJ, I don't know if you didn't mention the transportation, but as of right now, we're helping about 150 students so far in transportation, which is fantastic. With what little time we had to plan and prepare for, and let's say on average you get $7,000 per student, and 150 students, that's well over $1 million. Being able to get students to our campus, we'd get 3/4 of that per se. But right now, we're about 150 students. We think that number will assist us making these numbers look even a little bit better. So thankful and very, very grateful for the opportunity to be able to provide some assistance to our kids to get to campus.
So, members, questions, I have one.
I do have one, if we've really grown a lot, we've 10,000 students over just the past year. What do you majorly attribute that to?
Well, I think there's a number of things that are converging, you know, one on the macro scale, just the climate. I think more families are entering post-secondary planning with more scrutiny. Boy, is college really going to pay off? You know, college has really escalated in price and stuff. So I think there's a lot more family conversations about that and more openness to other pathways than traditionally there has been. So I think that plays into it. I think just as West-MEC has started to grow, more people are talking about it, the good work that Dr. Spurgeon and CJ regularly talk about, being out there in the community so much, the good work of these targeted strategies now we're doing. You heard, you know, we didn't used to do these charter school things that we're doing today. So last year there was a great charter school luncheon. About 3-4 years ago, Maryland started inviting charter school partners to our big meetings. Our local director meeting now has charter schools. So I think it's probably just a number of things that are all coming together to increase that.
Yes.
Chairman Bigerly, one of the things, yesterday, or we were at the central campus, and campus principal Troy Gavaldon was meeting with Federal Express. They had put our meeting off for about 5 minutes, so we finished up that meeting. When he came out, what he said was just shocking. He said, you know, you realize that we have a partnership with FedEx, and our students in aviation maintenance can come out at a minimum of $45 an hour. That's $93,600 per year. So when you're looking at what the increase might be, the job opportunities and the ability to be able to, your earning power coming out with those credentials or those stackable and micro credentials has changed significantly in the last 2 or 3, 4, 5 years. But those job opportunities, the ability of people being able to say, you know what, I can do this for this versus 4 years of this for that.
I take it down to the level of what's happening at our member district schools and in our charters, and they are talking to students like they haven't talked to them before. It used to be they would say, where do you want to go to college? Now they're saying, what do you want to do and how can I help you get there? And that has changed the face of kids, knowing that they can look at life from the eyes that they want to look at and not what they think somebody else wants them to go to. And I think that's grassroots.
So, Mr. Walsh, so I have a couple, and maybe I have a couple questions. First, because I've received a couple calls, one from a board member, and maybe this has already been addressed. So when you look at the total population or number of students on all of our central campuses, what is that number? And then what is the number in composite or in total for all of the satellite districts that we serve? And I would just ask, without going into each of the programs year over year, how has that changed? And it could be a report too, or a email to board
And
members.
we'll follow up in more detail with a report, and I know I've been working with Ms. Wissam on a report that will give you that enrollment by your own district, the districts that you represent, and we're almost ready to share that.
That would be helpful.
Just real quick though, the central program enrollment, that's a very easy number for us to give you. The satellite enrollment is a much harder number to give you, and there are two things that make this complicated. One, as you know, we've changed student information systems from Schoolmaster to Focus, and at the same time as that happened, the Arizona Department of Education changed business rules quite dramatically, actually, the way they calculate instructional minutes in the classroom. That has caused some mass confusion across the state of Arizona, specifically with CTEDs and the way member districts report attendance to us. So, for instance, I just learned this week that at some point last year, Agua Fria stopped reporting 9th grade enrollment to us. So these numbers are very fluid. The district's in the process right now of opening up some enrollment for next year to recalculate things, to get the number more firm for you. So central enrollment, we have satellite enrollment just because we work with 48 different high schools. And trying to get them all to understand the same thing is taking a little more time than we'd like it to. So that numbers, you're going to see some fluidity for a little while longer.
Okay. I just also think from a management perspective, from a governing board's perspective, a longitudinal year-over-year review of that will be very important for, making decisions as we move forward. The last question, it's really a question and a comment, or a comment and a question, is that we do focus on skills and credentials. This is all very good, and we're providing students with other opportunities. But in the K-12 system, we also, even though all students aren't going to be engineers or doctors or scientists, we do have to treat the student holistically. So when we look at, even in the West Valley, basic competencies in math and in language arts, and I know we're lagging in science because they're switching over on the state assessment. Is there, and I think I know the answer to this, and I don't think it's going to be a positive one, but I'm pretty sure. Is there any way that we can take even our central campuses and link that to state assessments for our students, and maybe have a comparison? Because maybe there's some motivational factor, something that we can glean out of that data, and maybe we can provide some opportunities for member school districts.
Yeah, Dr. Pigarelli, thank you for the complex questions this evening. This one, as Dr. Pigarelli is suggesting, is difficult because a few years ago, our state created a menu of assessments. So we no longer have a common state assessment. So it would be really easy, like, to answer this question 7 years ago would have been very easy, because we would have gone to the AZ merit test, because all students in the state of Arizona take that test, and we could map those scores. Today, though, our districts are afforded the opportunity to do a menu of assessment so that local communities and governing boards have that decision making. And so what that does is it just makes it a little harder now to do that comparison and to know what each district does. So what we have done, though, because of this, and because in the beginning when West-MEC created its assessment system, knowing that not only are we helping them with technical skills, but because they are learning in relevance, we are helping with their math skills, their reading comprehension skills, and those things too, like Dr. Pigarelli suggests. So within our own program assessment system, we have included in the blueprints technical math and technical reading scores that we break out, and it's what really helps us let students know how they're doing in those areas as well. So we could break out some of that and show it to you. In addition, we have we've started some conversations with Samuel Irwin with the State Department of ADE in their data office to ask that same question, Dr. Pigarelli. Now that we can see these achievement gaps or lack of achievement gaps here at West-MEC, we've asked them to start helping us build a better picture with state tests, with whatever that district reported to the state. Can we start having access to some of that and looking at it? So it is a great question, and we're working towards a solution.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know it's a complex question, but I think broadly, and, looking into the future, the societal relevance is extremely important. And, I don't want to, have you go off on wild goose chases as one board member without, more interest on something so complex, but
It is a great question.
It's something to keep in mind.
We just started today, our C&I department with Dr. Laura Jaime and Jarrett Guy, worked with principals to launch some benchmarking assessments here at semester, which will really start helping us towards this effort as well. Thank you.
Mr. Struck.
I saw van tours. Can you tell us what a van tour is?
Sure, a van tour is, one of the biggest issues for our schools sometimes is transportation, because they don't have any money. They're at Sunrise High School and they can't get a group of kids to come to West-MEC because they have no money to find a bus. So we have our little orange vans out there. So we have the recruiters that a school can call and say, I have 5 students, because we'll take more than 5 with one counselor or a teacher to come with them. And we literally go to that school, pick up those 5 kids and that teacher or counselor and bring them to the campus that they want to see and give them a tour. So that's what a van tour is. We're just trying to help schools that have no other way to get kids here that are interested in our programs. We've pretty much highlighted that only to our high opportunity programs, kids that are gonna come and see precision or water or collision at the time. And that's where we were really focusing them. So it's not like we're out every day bringing kids back and forth. We might have done a dozen of them throughout the year. But it's been a way for schools who have no other way to get.
I just hadn't heard of it, so I was just curious. What's a van tour? Gotta be. Well, I was picturing taking a van and touring them, driving them just through the campus or something. But that's like, this is just a bunch of buildings. Hey, so I wanted to dig a little bit into the numbers. One is, we didn't show what the delta was from year to year. So when we see like changes in demographics of minority, it's really not clear. Is everything the same? So then there's a change, or are we changing programs that led to a change? And so that's what's really not clear to me. And so I just wanted to back up even a little bit further, page 6, talking about charter schools. And we're at 17%. The last few years, charter schools have really grown. And the last number I saw was the end of 22. The state was at 21% and we're growing about 1% a year. So we're actually probably at 22, 23% charter schools statewide, and we're only at 17% participation. We're probably losing 6%.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's many elementary charter schools more than high school charter schools. So when you look at that number, that's just one of those areas. Like we really have to do apples to apples.
Right, and so that's like why I'm asking the question. So what is the number for the statewide high school enrollment or Maricopa County wide?
I think for high school, it's 18% is the last I heard. And so on the report itself, you can kind of see, West-MEC last year was at 18% and we dropped down to the 17.2%, which is an interesting thing too, other than we know our member districts really grew a lot of enrollment. We've just had a lot of people move to the West Valley. So our member districts have grown a great deal in enrollment. And because the charter school enrollment is not published in the same way, I don't know if their enrollment grew at the same rate or not. So we're not 100% sure why that is.
And we're a little fuller too. There's more students in our school, so.
It's more competitive this year than ever before.
Right.
And then I would look at, we talked about fair and equitable, but I was looking at like the adult ed. And African Americans are 2%, but in the state, they're like 3.9%. Asians are 4% and we're at 2%. So are we really reaching out fair and equitably to all our different communities? Because I'm seeing lower numbers in some minorities, and am I missing something?
I tell you, adult education, and of course we have Lizette here who another time we could do a whole report on adult education, but adult education is difficult for.
But even the students like at 2% for Asians as well.
Yeah, a lot of so what's hard with this is this gets expensive really fast. So when you look at GCU, when you look at UTI, they have budgets of near $500,000 for advertising. we currently spend, we've spent, you know, less than $100,000 year to year over advertising. So it is very targeted, but it's targeted currently by zip codes. It's so we could target even more by some of the things you're suggesting, Mr. Straka. But it would be a budget commitment from you all to really achieve that.
And then I guess the other question, I would go back to what Mr. Garcia said earlier is, or maybe it was before the meeting, you were telling me in the meeting with the governor's office, students that are in CTE, we're missing a lot of them because they don't have the right grades, or are we really getting the right students? Because we're not looking for the kids that are going to college. We're looking for the kids that really, after a West-MEC program, they're going into the workforce, and we see a lot still going to college. So are we marketing the right way? Are our selection process proper, that if a lot of our kids are going to college, are our rubrics really calculated the right way? And that would be just my thoughts on, you know, following up on your comments.
Start that and then I'll.
I so appreciate what you're saying, and I would say that the student, we don't know who the students are, so we recruit to all students and no matter where we go. And so then students apply to us, and we don't know who those students are when we're allocating those numbers. We do use the rubric, and we're looking at things like attendance and discipline. Our GPA is no higher than a 3.0. It's not a 4.0. And what we were finding, as Dr. Spurgeon will say, that most of the students came to us not thinking they were going to college. And then because they got to us and they've gotten dual or PLA or articulation, then they think, I can do that. I can do both. I can learn and earn. I can get a job, go to the community college, and then kind of work from there. They can maybe do a 90-30 program. Today, the community college just talked about how they have bachelor's degrees, and they're finishing a bachelor degree at a community college for less than $24,000. So things are open to students now. But I would tell you, probably the students that are coming to us have never really thought that they were going to be college-going students. I mean, maybe the students going into nursing services do. Maybe some of the students that are going into a certain program think that is my pathway, and pharmacy, maybe they want to be a pharmacist. But many of our programs are programs where kids are interested, they want the skill, and then they're going to see what happens, because they're 15. They don't always even know. They're just putting their toe in the water, and they're saying, I really want to go to West-MEC and I want to be part of that. Now they want to be part of it just because they see it and they want to be a part of us. And then from there, they make those decisions. And our teachers who have come from industry, they are getting them into industry to the best of their ability, but then they're also challenging them to do, because then those teachers are teaching dual and telling them, if you want a little bit more money, maybe if you have some credits, that's what that company is going to look at, and they're going to give you a raise. Maybe not. Maybe they don't need that. Licensure and certification is all that they need. But I believe really at my core, Mr. Straka, that the students that are coming to West-MEC are the right student, because we have put something together that we have made sure that is equitable across all of our districts, with all of our counselors having their hand in it, because they know that if a student is not doing well in attendance and they get into our program, for the most part, they're probably not going to do well at attendance here. So we're working, maybe they will change, but for the most part, that higher rubric score on attendance and discipline and GPA is what makes that student the right student. And then we just ramp them up from there.
And the highest indicator on the rubric is career interest. So they have to display a career interest, and that carries more weight than GPA.
So I would kind of, if I could just on GPA. I think 3 might be too high. And I'm talking the C student. So first I'll tell you, there's the old story about your college student. Your A students will come back and teach. Your B students will come back and design the buildings. And your C students will come back and pay for those buildings, because they're the ones that are successful. So I would challenge you to maybe admit some below 3.0 and see how they do. And I'll give you an example of a C project. Do you know who Frank Smith is? I think his name was Frank Smith. He wrote this paper in distribution to his college professor, graduate program, gave him a C, which in C in grad school is a failure. So does anyone know the story of where I'm going? He happened to get lucky and inherited a few $1 million and bought the Arkansas Delivery Company. That company morphed into Federal Express. His model is a Federal Express model, and a professor told him that won't work. And so I'm sometimes wondering if C students are entrepreneurs and they're the ones that we might need to look at more.
And I would share that they're in our seats because it's not only those students, they get some points. So there's only like 2-point difference between a 2.5 and a 3.0. And those students are in it. Not every student that's in our program is at a 70 or a 65 rubric. Students that are in our program are in the 50s and even the 42 or above. So that's the data that's probably missing that you would probably really appreciate seeing is what are the rubric scores of the kids that are in our school? Because that's going to be wide. It's not going to be just the highest point.
So let me add.
Go.
So let me add something here. So the number 2,500 of total students, you're looking at many thousands of high school students. So the percentage between enrollment that we have here at West-MEC to the percentage of enrollment that's within the total schools that we have is still fairly low. Also know that minority students still in Arizona do not get the kind of scores that non-minorities have. So if you're raising that bar to a 3.0, you're systematically missing a bunch of minority students. That's just the way our education system is today. So automatically you're cutting people out. So I think if we're gonna be cutting edge, which is what we're trying to do, leaders lead, right? So if we're gonna leaders lead, then we need to find a way, because we're seeing this in the market. There's a reason why we have a construction shortage. There's a reason why we have nursing shortages with small credentials, not necessarily degrees. There's a reason why we have small lower level type of manufacturing industry workers, a shortage. And these shortages are because people that do not see college as an option are not seeing West-MEC as an option. And if they're not seeing West-MEC as an option, they're not seeing college as an option, then they really don't have any options, which is probably why we get a dropout rate that we do. So the numbers are great in context of growth, but I don't see it very great in context of comparable populations of where we should be hitting our mark. So we have to be practical about what's going on in our industries. We have to be practical about where the needs are. We talked about apprenticeships today and the needs of apprenticeships. We had a bunch of construction companies talking with us today about they can't find anybody. We heard the news from TSMC that they can't find any people to build the facility. We have a housing shortage. There's a lot of realities that are just right in front of our faces that we can impact because leaders lead to make these things happen. I think we should take a deeper dive at lowering our qualifications to allow more people access, or maybe even in the deep dive context of also finding information of why the students are not getting to that mark and what we can do to help. I think would be instrumental.
Yeah, Mr. Garcia, Mr. Stricker, we absolutely agree. I am a special education student. I could talk hours on this, but I won't. I would just share that, as Marilyn said, none of this prevents a student, right? We take students all the way down into those lower rubrics and stuff. So there is nothing that prevents students. In addition, even if a student did not meet any requirements, there are success plans where a student can still come in. So we have lots of students that are able to come in on success plans. I would also say that it's important to remember our programs are full. You know, our construction classes are full. Many of our classes have waiting lists. So this is really the important conversation Dr. Spurgeon has been leading with you know, we have to have big conversations on moving dirt and opening spaces, because to grow the percent of students we can serve from our, you know, high school population, it's not going to happen doing anything with recruitment strategies at this point, right? Because we're full. It's going to require us opening up new space to, and absolutely, it's a great conversation in tandem. As we open up new spaces, can we also do things to get better at recruitment? Absolutely. Can we do things to let all students know that we're available, and might that include lowering GPA? I'm good with that for sure.
See, and I would just go back, I think, to Mr. Garcia's point and what you said, our programs are full. If I have one slot and I have both students the same, one has a 2.8 GPA and one has a 3.8 GPA, which one's gonna get in? All things being equal.
Well, I can't tell you that I know that because I don't know what their attendance is, and I don't know what their ECAP has been.
Their attendance are equal.
So the first round of placement starts with our member districts. So it would be a decision, it'd be local control. The member district would make that decision, Mr. Straka.
Because my concern would be that 3.8 kid is probably going to college, where the 2.8 kid is probably not, but would thrive in our program. And I can tell you, when I've gone to completion programs, how many parents have said, I remember one lady more than any other lady, my daughter wouldn't have made it through high school if it wasn't for the cosmetology program. And those are the kids that they're not going to college, but we can change their life.
And I would say we do that, right? You met those students. Those are the
But
students
those are
in
the
the
ones,
program.
those are the ones I want to get more of in our program and less of the ones that are probably going to college. Would you go ahead, Mr. I'll yield to Mr. Ramirez.
Maybe one thing that would help us is you guys could give us a presentation on what that rubric is in admitting students, because what I'm hearing is we're voicing concerns, but then you're saying, oh, we got that covered. So maybe it's a misunderstanding on our side of what that rubric is. You may already be addressing all those concerns that we're bringing up. So I think that would help us.
We want to grow and we want to hear and listen. We really do. And I want to pull the data of we've saved our rubrics for a long time to be able to know that we are putting the right student in the right program. And because we have this good retention and that our demographics are showing that they're all fair and equal in what's happening.
Yeah.
But I love the idea. I'm happy to do that.
So here's the thought. Could we go, and I don't know what kind of effort this would be, tell me if it's too big, but we know our students that apply and we have years of history and we know what their GPA is when they start. And then when they graduate, their GPA, and did they go to college or did they just go straight to the workforce? Because we want to find more going to the workforce and less going to college. Is GPA an indicator, or what might be an indicator?
Range. The GPA is a range anyway. It's not the GPA. It's between they get the same amount of points from a 2.5 to a 3.0. And then it's a 2.0 to a 2.45. So it's just not, you get this point for 3.0 and this point for 2.0.
GPA is really not an indicator we use. It's more important in this conversation than it is in the system. And we do not, we don't have their GPAs. Those are at the home schools. So we have this range, a rubric score, but we do not have GPAs.
Maybe their sophomore year GPA, but not their end GPA. Right. And we're not capturing their GPA. We're not saying their GPA is a 3.1 or a 2.9 or a 2.7.
Even if you had ranges that might indicate, who's successful for college, who's successful for our program in the workforce. Because that's what Mr. Garcia is talking about, is we need people in the workforce to go into these fields. And if we train them, that's where we want them to end up. Not just hey, I'm going to work here for a couple of years while going and doing something else.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Next on the list is career services, student credentials and placement report. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Pingarelli, governing board members, Superintendent Spurgeon. Lizette and I are having the pleasure to share the credentials and career placements report with you. And it's always an exciting topic and usually celebrated, so we're excited to be here. But before we do that, we wanted to share some career services data highlights with you. Over the last school year, our career services coaches, we have 4 of them on our central campuses, as you all know, as well as 1 adult ed employment specialist. They are in the classrooms working with students, doing workshops one-on-one for classroom workshops, and these workshops all geared towards career readiness. They gear towards credential attainment and also career placement. So this last school year, career coaches and employment specialists were in the classrooms 561 times with the students working on resumes, working on getting them ready for interviewing, email etiquette, networking skills, just anything they can to make sure that those students are career ready. They also sat with students or were in classroom settings completing 1,279 career exit plans. And we're going to go ahead and continue those again this year, a little bit more elevated in Dr. Spurgeon's 2.0 career literacy plans. So they are meeting with these students, making sure that they have a plan after West-MEC, either for post-secondary or in the workforce, or if it's military, but they know what their next step is. And then while all of that is occurring, they're also reaching out to 1,521 completers from the year prior to find out what they are currently doing. Where did they decide to go to work? Where did they decide to continue their education? Are they in the military? So they are very, very busy. Now let's go ahead and move on to industry credentials. We've talked about the 3 industry relevance categories that we have all of our credentials in, and you've heard of the required credential. Those are the credentials that are required for work a majority of the time. Those are your state board licenses, nursing, cosmetology, FAA certifications for aviation. We have the preferred category. That is the credentials that employers are seeking out and that might give a student hiring priority over to somebody without that credential. For example, the medical assisting CCMA certification or RMA certification would fall under that category. And then lastly, our relevant category, which is kind of the nice to have credentials. They look nice on a resume. Employers might acknowledge them, but students might not get hiring priority over somebody with years of working experience. And this year we've actually drilled down even further into those categories, and we've also added the micro credentials or the stackable credentials. So those are going to be your manufacturer specific credentials and those types of things. It's also important to always take into consideration testing eligibility and availability when we're looking at credential numbers. A lot of the credential testing does still require students to be 18 years or older at the time of testing. A lot of the FAA certifications, pharmacy fall under that category. Availability, we like to utilize proctoring on campus as much as we possibly can. You know, we have our testing center at the central campus that does a lot of the FAA aviation testing. And then we also have our START Center testing center, which allows students anywhere from dental programs and now also esthetician and hairstyling, which has been a wonderful blessing to our students, not having to drive all the way out to Chandler to test for those certifications. So we are trying to make testing more readily available wherever we can for them. National pass rates. A lot of these certifications are just really difficult. IT security, for example, the national testing rate for that certification is in the 20s, 23%, I believe. And those are industry professionals taking those tests that have already had experience in the industry for a few years. So we're talking about high school students who have gone through, you know, a year or 2 years of the program trying to test for these certifications. And then lastly, cost is always a big issue. We've been really fortunate on the secondary side that we've gotten a lot of state grants and some private funding for credentials. But for the adult ed side, that's definitely a big challenge to overcome for these students because they are paying out of pocket for these certifications. So these are our industry credentials earned by 2023 secondary and post-secondary completing cohorts. And that number has increased a total of over 1,000 completer credentials since last year. So we're really, really excited about that. And it's really taken a lot of effort. Instructors, career coaches, campus administrators, everyone has really pitched in to try and make sure that we're tracking all of these credentials and collecting them and getting students to sit for those credentials. All right, so placement, we are at 84% for overall positive placement for the 2022 secondary completers. We're always a year behind on reporting placements. That is down a little bit from the year prior, but we believe that that does have something to do with the amount of questions ADE has required to ask us of the students in the placement survey. It went from about 10 questions to 16, almost 17 questions. So it takes a lot longer to kind of survey them on the phone or via email or text messages. Also, students are just not answering their phones. There's lots of robot calls out there and spam calls out there. I know I screen my phone calls all the time. So I believe that parents and students are doing that as well. And they're just not picking up for us. But all things considered, we are still vastly above the state placement rate at 69%. So we're still doing pretty well. And then here I just included the additional ADE questions that are required right now in our placement survey. So again, we went from about 10 questions to about 16 questions, and it's just a lot for students to answer some of these detailed questions like, where are you working? Like, give us the address of where you're working. Who's your supervisor? Things like that. They're not very willing to share that information in today's day and age. And with that, I will hand it over to Lizette, who's going to talk about post-secondary.
Excellent. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So on positive placements for adult education, we actually have to gather all this information listed on this slide in order for us to count them as a placement. And just like what was shared right now, students don't answer their phone calls. Many of them don't even have voicemail setups. So we are thankful that we, from time to time, if we're able to get them via text, that's helpful. What we've done this past year, America has been working very aggressively with the students that once they're placed, we have that data. And once they complete, we can quickly just say, hey, I'm just confirming that you're still employed with so-and-so and you're still doing this. And that just makes it a lot easier. So going back to students that completed a year and a half ago, which is our reporting period, it's very challenging because they've moved on, they've changed their phone numbers, they've changed their email, they no longer live where they live. So it's extremely challenging to get them once they've actually left our building. So the goal is to get them with us while they are still with us. And just like Jessica shared, our students, our adult learners are like, why are you asking me all this information? Why do you why do you need it? So we get a lot of hesitant questioning with this information. The good thing is that at orientations, I tell them, hey, we're accredited, our accreditor requires this information. So that kind of rings a bell for them and they're able to share. Pay, which is required for us to have for Arizona at Work reporting through the eligible training provider list. Pay is very challenging to get. You can probably get everything else, but pay, I don't know. I mean, they probably think we're gonna go asking them for money or something, but they're not willing to share pay. I don't know. That one is a challenge, but we do our best to gather what we can from whoever is willing to share. With that said, our benchmarks for our accreditor, the Council on Occupational Education placement is a minimum of 70%, and that's 70% of students that actually completed the program. And then licensure, which only applies to the aviation program, is 70% as well. You'll see here on the slide here, our reporting percentages for the reporting period of July 1st of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. So a while back ago. So this is off of our 2022 reporting period. And we were excellent above all with placement and licensure. So it's a great success. We can't always say that we meet them with all of our programs, but we're very thankful when we actually do, and we can say, yes, we're green on all of them. So overall, as West-MEC, we were at 78%, which is still above the 70%, which is still a great celebration for us. And with that, we stand for questions.
Thank you all. Members in question.
So I'd be curious, going back to our previous conversation, that 84% placement. Do you have the breakdown of how many went to post-secondary, how many went right into the workforce? And how is that comparing year over year?
Yes, I believe you were given some documents of our placement report. You have the counts by program and then the percentages by program as well. So that should break it down for you. And there you have the education breakdown, the employment breakdown, education and employment, military, as well as religious mission.
And then does it also have in here, so I'm skipping through, do we have the student count as well? Because I'd be curious, last year to this year, we had 1,000 more. That sounds like a lot more. How much did our enrollment go up?
Well, the 1,000 more was for credentials.
Right, so we had 1,000 more credentials. How many more students did we have? Because we averaged on our 2,500 students roughly 1.4. So as long as we didn't go up that sounds like students are getting more. The thing that I'd really like to see, and I don't know if it's possible, is like FAA, I think, has 6 certifications and something else might only have 1. How do we know that our students got all the certifications they needed to go into the workforce? That's really I think the thing that's hardest, because I know we're working hard and we're tracking a lot of credentials. Do they have what they need to get? Because that 16% that we didn't get, maybe they didn't get all their credentials, so that shouldn't count against us. And that's what I'm trying to get the two to balance out in my head. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. And I think that's where the credential categories come into place, the required, preferred, and relevant. We work really closely with our advisory councils, industry partners, to come up with the categories that each credential falls into, based on whether or not those will be required to move straight into the workforce. So I believe you were shared a credential matrix as well. And I believe that each credential on there lists which category it's in and the number of students that earn that credential. So it should give you kind of a rough idea of kind of which credentials are required for the students to move into the workforce.
And if I may add, on that 16%, it's possible that we were never able to make contact with that 16%. So it wasn't necessarily that they weren't placed anywhere or somewhere, it's just we couldn't connect with them.
Do we have to follow the do not call list?
For enrollment purposes, for at least on the adult side, no, we will contact you. It's written into our enrollment acknowledgement that we will contact you. So they cannot.
What about when we try to call parents? Because the parents, are we allowed to call the parents if they're on the do not call list?
We can call parents or anyone that they listed on their application as long as they listed them as a reference. And we don't necessarily call them to say, oh, hey, I'm calling because I need this. Is I'm trying to connect to so-and-so. Would you please relay a message to get back to us?
Okay. What percentage of the 16 do you think, 16% we just can't get a hold of?
My personal opinion, I think it's the 16%. Because if you could get someone on the phone, you can find out if they're working, if they're going to school, or if they need help with getting a credential, or hey, can we connect you to employment? Once we get them on the phone, that becomes opportunity. When we can't reach them, that's a dead end.
What about, can we get the information at the completion ceremony where we give you your certificate right after you complete the form about it?
That would be wonderful. We would love that. Unfortunately, we have to wait until the new school year starts. So even all of the great career exit data, the career plan that we collect from students right before they leave us, where they're telling us they're enrolled at ASU or they're telling us that they're going to go to work for McCarthy Construction, we can't use that unless we verify that information again after July 1 of the new year.
And for us, we can do it the day after.
We're allowed to reach out to them through social media or just, okay, you can start.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Our accreditor says wherever you can find any information that validates that the student is employed in the field, we can definitely use that. We get a screenshot that becomes the documentation that supports that.
And that ETPL data is very important for DOL submission.
Yes.
So it's very strict and required by DOL.
Yes, you can't put 0.
Yeah,
So
can't
you
put
have
0.
to have some data.
And they audit us, so.
You have to say that ETPL reporting
I know.
is like mind blowing. It's like you could have a migraine after that. That one is like, forget the 1.5 year lag of reporting. It's like, no, we're gonna report now, and then we're gonna report from like 6 months ago, and then 9 months ago, all in the same reporting period. It's like, yeah. Anyway, sorry for the excuse.
So it's amazing the links that we go to try to contact our students. In fact, in the previous position, one of my counselors actually saw one of our students who hadn't graduated on the Jerry Springer show. Found out how to contact them. They came back and graduated. So it's the links that you go to try to find them because they can be anywhere. The mobility of many of our students, once they're gone, sometimes they're just gone.
Especially if they're not on social media.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next up is revisions to policies pursuant to ASBA recommendations. And this is a first read. Ms. Mays. Thank you. Welcome to the podium.
Yes, you too. We'll have to play twinsies tomorrow.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the governing board. In May of 2023, the ASBA revised the 3 policies that are before you to comply with open meeting law requirements. And so what they found is that it's in board authorized, and that didn't align with the statute. The statute did not specifically say board. So the revision to this policy basically removes the word board from the 3 policies before you.
Okay. And that's for all 3. Okay. All right. And any other comments on this?
No, it's a pretty easy policy.
Okay. So members, this is a first read. If you would like to reach out to Mrs. Mays for clarification, please review it, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up on the agenda is motion to approve the consent agenda items. And for members in the audience and for the public listening out there, these items in the consent agenda are intended to be routine items, renewals of boilerplate, intergovernmental agreements, or things year over year that have not changed, donation reports, HR reports, those types of items, payroll vouchers that are routine month to month. So with that, members, are there any items you would like to remove from this consent agenda? And if not, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Sure.
Yes.
That conversation
As presented.
from the employee that got removed from her class. Is she in the personal, I didn't catch her name.
We really can't talk about I mean, if you've reviewed the report, you want to pull the HR report and ask the question, you can, but we really can't discuss it. It's, you know.
I believe she said it was a March event, so it would not be in this report, is my understanding.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so therefore I would need a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll move to approve it as presented, hearing no.
Okay, and is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented by Mr. Straka and a second by Ms. Pleasant. Any, really isn't no further discussion. And so members, please cast your vote.
I'm still waiting for your vote. Did you get the pop-up? No. Okay, do you want to give me yes or no? Mr. Mealy Reno?
Yes, nothing's come up on my screen.
Give me a yes or a no?
Yes.
You.
Okay. So the motion carries 6-0 with 1 not voting, and motion passes. Thank you, members. Moving on to section G, which is action and discussion items. And this item is a motion to approve the agreement with Phoenix Speedway, doing business as Phoenix Speedway and West-MEC to become the official technical school of Phoenix Raceway, and authorize the superintendent to sign the agreement and any other affiliated documents. Dr. Spurgeon, or to your cabinet, I will turn that over. Mr. Welsh. And Mr. Williams.
Sure. Board Chair Pingarelli, governing board members, Superintendent Spurgeon. Thank you for this evening, for being able to talk to you about this really unique opportunity. And I had the opportunity, thank you, Ms. Brown, for sharing some of the specifics with the board, but I'll just highlight a couple of those. So the agreement in front of you really represents first of its kind, something very unique in the state of Arizona. And it really is because what we were talking about earlier, right? Our community is recognizing the importance of valuing all pathways past high school. That really led Phoenix Raceway to wanting to officially partner with a trade school. And so they really did some homework, and they went out there and talked and met some folks, and in the end of it, really reached out to West-MEC and Dr. Spurgeon for West-MEC to be the official trade school, or the official school working with NASCAR. That really brings us some one-of-a-kind opportunities, being denoted as the official trade school with NASCAR. Really the only school with Phoenix Raceway in their partnership with NASCAR. Most importantly, it really opens up work-based learning opportunities. I'm sorry that Ms. Wiley is not here, but I know with Ms. Wiley leading the effort, as well as the rest of the board, really challenged us to continue to find unique ways to provide hands-on learning and relevant work-based learning opportunities for students out there. And so through this partnership, we're going to have this unique opportunity in race days to have students really engaged in relevant work-based learning. And it makes sense, of course, our automotive and our power sports students, even our diesel mechanic students, like that naturally makes sense. But that raceway really becomes its own town during race weekends. And so it's way more than just those automotive programs. We're gonna have health program students involved with first responders. So, you know, if right, someone cuts themselves on the way in the parking lot, someone has heat exhaustion, those types of things. Our medical assisting, our nursing students are going to be able to walk along with health responders. Our law and public safety students are going to be able to do crowd control, not only at the race, but in the RV parking lots where they'll see some interesting things. We have our welding students that will get to participate in the pit. So it really extends well beyond just automotives. You know, there'll be, you know, over 100 students that weekend that will get this hands-on experience. That is something that has never been offered before. That's unique to this agreement. In addition, there are some really cool promotional things. Chris Cook will be able to work with them to wrap the Phoenix Raceway show car. So the whole tail into that show car will have our arrows on it, a faster way forward. That will be out at community events, really increasing this awareness for West-MEC. And, you know, we talked earlier about, right, different targeted approaches, different unique things to do. What aren't you doing today to reach students that maybe don't know about West-MEC, right? So maybe that student that isn't at a career and college fair, well, maybe that student's at NASCAR. And so that student is going to get to see some of this really cool things. We'll be on the racetrack, the Jobotron. Again, in that communication yesterday kind of outlined all of those types of things. But we really think it's a unique opportunity to reach people that haven't heard us before. And more importantly, a way to provide work-based learning opportunities to a wide group of students. With that, I'll invite Mr. Williams or Dr. Spurgeon to add anything else or answer any questions.
I would just piggyback on what Mr. Welch shared, and what I think sets this apart. It's not unique that community partners might sponsor an event or sponsor other activities for one another, but what I think sets this apart is that the benefit is to the students. So they're really being embedded in this event, which is I think a 3-day event over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's unique. That's a nice return on that sponsorship. It's nice to have logo placement. It's nice to maybe get a table for 6 or 8 for a dinner or something like that. But to get the benefit back to the student through the sponsorship is, I think, of note.
Yeah, it is. Mr. Williams says one of the events is specifically for our automotive kids, where they're going to meet the pit crew leaders, really talk about high performance engine maintenance, and it's an opportunity for them to really develop mentors in the industry. And of course, it will extend beyond just the 3 days, because they're going to set up guest speaking opportunities where they'll bring the cars to our campuses, to each of our 3 automotive programs, and let students engage in additional learning there in their own labs.
Members, I'd like to know what members have to say about this.
Anyone else? I have a lot of questions. So if you guys want to go, you guys might cover some of my questions, then I'll call.
My first question is is there like a lesson plan or curriculum or something that's been worked out already, or is that going to be worked out?
Pending approval that we, of course, it hasn't been approved yet. So we haven't done anything yet, but pending approval, yes, we will have the opportunity. Susan Leon, our work-based learning coordinator, myself, Jarrett Guy have the opportunity to meet with their team, and they have over like hospitality, for instance, over public security, over those areas, they have these chiefs. We're going to get to meet with those chiefs to really plan out that learning so that it aligns with the standards that students are taught. So it has not been developed yet because it's a first of its kind, but if approved, then we would move into that next step. And I would venture to say, it'll continue to get more robust, like what we do this year, because the race is coming up here in November. So what we did this year, we'll build on, for next year and et cetera.
And then also, besides automotive and motorsports, what other programs would benefit from this sponsorship?
Yeah, so our health programs, working with first responders on site will benefit, so our nursing program, our medical assisting program, our physical therapy programs, those students will get to work with the health activities. Law and public safety, our police programs will work with them. They're trying to work out something for our coding and IT security. I don't know what that would be yet. That's still in the works, but something for our coding students with like apps, maintaining responses and doing tweaking to the apps in real time there during the race days. They have a lot of different apps to help that town work and stuff. They've even talked about our water program because they have water filtration systems out there at the track and stuff. So they've talked about incorporating them. Welding will get to do things right in the pit and stuff. In addition, it's a whole town that operates and they have a whole fleet of golf carts. So our power sports students will get to work on those golf carts in real time. As Mr. Williams said, welding students, they'll have little things happen and they'll weld them in place and get them going again. So they're really thinking about, of our 29 programs, they've got a good plan for at least half of those programs and continuing to grow ideas.
And then there's another question. Has our legal counsel reviewed okay, it's been approved already by our legal counsel.
So pretty much there is just going to be a hands-on experience for our kids at the racetrack whenever they're racing. I was envisioning our logo on a car. I'm going.
That too, but
Oh,
it goes much deeper than just logo placement or kind of sponsorship headline. Intentionally, we knew that if this was a partnership we wanted to enter into, that there was going to need to be a robust return for our students, work-based learning being a critical component of all of our programs. The venue actually exceeded what we originally thought in terms of alignment with our programs. We were really looking at our automotive and power sports programs, but as we dug into some of the conversations, as you heard, it's expanded to many more programs.
Yeah. That sounds excellent.
So I have a couple questions kind of around a lot of the liability. I see in the contract, we have to have a $5 million liability policy and $1 million per occurrence, $1 million workers' comp, but our students, are they considered workers at this event or are they students? And are we required to carry $1 million on each student workers' comp coverage?
So we have been working with our trust on this. So we have some choices to make in that decision. If the student is 18 years of age, the student can do it as an employee, but we currently have it set up as a work-based learning agreement. So they will fall under our trust and all those requirements have been met. So students will be there doing work-based learning as volunteers.
Similar to when we have our medical assisting students go out into hospitals and clinics,
It's very similar, like Banner Health, we have students in the hospital system. We have students, our construction students on construction sites, and those agreements are pretty routine with our trust. And so our trust and legal always go through those.
So on page 10, it says confidentiality. This is a matter of public record. It can't be confidential. That paragraph probably should be struck.
As of now, that ship is sealed.
Yeah.
So we can look at that revision.
And then because of all the liability and everything, this is where I kind of get a little bit, I don't want to, how can I put this? If it's not in the contract, it might not happen. So all those programs you listed, I don't like wording on page 17 that says PR will in good faith offer student worker and no definition of what it is. Because as soon as they say in good faith, their insurance people come back and say, you can't have students there. It's too dangerous. And it's like, sorry, we in good faith offered work-based learning. All we can offer you is working at the concession stand. I would like to see the in good faith struck out of there, where it just says PR will offer students work and opportunity and list some of those, not limited to automotives and so forth, because otherwise, in good faith, we wanted to do it, but our insurance people said no. And where does that leave us? The other thing I didn't see on here is an opportunity for students to earn money to go to national competitions. Could we get a concession stand to run? In particular, the concession stand inside the track in the pit area is probably the most profitable. And I know it's not owned by a sponsor. So that might be, you know, that could pay for all the students' travel to national competitions.
I think that's a good follow-up question. I know that that's contracted out third party, but we can.
I mean, we're doing a sponsorship and then I would love to get some cover by, I don't want this to become a Bud Light moment. And what I mean by that is we have contacts at the governor's office. Hey, governor, we're talking about doing this. What do you think? And then after we talk with the governor, hey, here's the agreement. Thank you for being on board. Because now we have it in an email that when the media builds it up, hey, the governor agreed to this. They were aware of it before we signed it. I would like to see some kind of cover with the governor, superintendent of public instruction, as well as maybe Mr. Cook go out to some of his media contacts and say, hey, what does this look like? Because I don't want it to blow up of, hey, they spent $150,000 or $155,000. We go out for bond and the public's like, they blow their money on really stupid sponsorships. So I just, you know, I want to make sure it doesn't hurt our brand. And so my thought would be, have we done any of that? Do we have cover?
I don't know that we've got an email chain covered, but we have had conversations with stakeholders about the potential of this partnership and sponsorship. A lot of those entities have their own relationships with Phoenix Raceway that I think would give us a little bit of comfort.
I'm more worried that the governor's office, Superintendent Horn's office, maybe a couple of legislative leaders, just so that if it blows up, they all knew about it ahead of time, because you know, I don't want to be left on an island.
So when you say this is a first of a kind, do you mean in the state of Arizona or do you mean nationally?
This sponsorship is specifically with the Phoenix International Raceway. So it is just a state operation. So I believe when they say the first of their kind, they're probably referring to in the state of Arizona.
And remind me the term of the contract again and the cost.
It's a
3
3 year.
years.
I believe it's just over 155,000.
Yeah, like 45,000 upon signing it, 55,000 the next year, and then 55,000 the following
year. And I briefly, so was it Ms. Siegel that reviewed it for?
I don't know. Carrie O'Brien.
Okay, Carrie O'Brien. Okay, I did discuss it, board members, with Ms. Siegel. I did not ask for a specific legal opinion and what potential liability. I did the, you know, myself, the smell test for gifting, and I don't think this one is a problem, speaking to policy people. So that's not the concern. The concern is it's a first time type of thing. And I'm a little conflicted on this because for years, and Mr. Cook is probably, Mr. Cook, are you back there?
Yes.
You know, I used to say, well, what are we doing for marketing? What are we doing? And here's a tremendous opportunity that presents itself. But there are some, you know, there are some potential unintended consequences. that the board, this is a political decision, board members.
That's why I asked for.
This is a real political decision. I kind of like it. I like the idea. I have questions like how many students, so 150 students show up at the raceway. Are they all going to, and I guess this goes to Mr. Straka's question, are they all going to just be, put at the water stand, or are they going to be engaged? And I think we need some clarification on that.
Yeah, we have had some initial conversations to that. They, in those areas that I mentioned, they right now have the opportunities to, for at least 60 students during a day. So like it could be a different 60 students on Saturday, then Friday, or then Sunday. But at least 60 students at a time are going to get this meaningful experience that's in one of those areas. As Mr. Williams talked about, food and beverage is in a, that's contracted out. So none of our students will be in concessions or food and beverage. They'll all be in those areas that have been outlined. And then if there are additional students, so let's say we put this out to our families and we get students in excess of that on certain days, they have promised a meaningful tour of operations to make sure all students are served in some way. But it might not be, the same quality hands-on experience that we had talked about. So we would work through those kinds of things.
And I would want to see also that whatever perks come along with this for West-MEC, the vast majority, if not all the perks, go to students and their families, not to members of the board, not to members of the cabinet. They really go to students and families.
The 60 students you're talking about in the different programs, I would like to see that in the contract, a minimum of, for those opportunities. Kind of what you're saying. And then I saw some mention of tickets. How do we distribute those tickets? Because they become part of the district. And if you give them to anybody, that becomes a gift of public funds. I don't know if we could, other than allowing students to watch the race, I don't know if we could give those to anybody else other than you did this, you can go back and see the race the next day or something. I mean, what would legal counsel say? Because I don't know if they address that.
And the tickets are issued directly from Phoenix Raceway to the recipient. So that may avoid that conflict.
That didn't go through us.
But they're getting it as a result of the contract.
It's a public contract. So
and it is public funds. So, and I know in speaking with Ms. Siegel, there is some AG opinion on this. But it's just not clear. I really like this idea. I think this is a really good opportunity. I think, can it be decided? Can we go back to legal counsel? Can you look at some of those recommendations and maybe come back for, even if it has to be a quick meeting? I could work with Dr. Spurgeon. I don't know, how do other board members feel about this? This is an action.
I like it. I just have these I want to make sure we're, like you said, it's a political decision. I want to make sure that we've covered ourselves before we go out on a limb. Also, there's some gaps, like when they talk about the car show presented by West-MEC, who's paying for that? It's not in the contract. I think they should pay for it. It needs to be spelled out in the contract on the bottom of page 16. And those are some of the things that I feel like are missing on, hey, specifically, what are they paying for? What do we pay for? Can we use their logo on our website as, we have what we sponsor. Do we get to use their logo? I didn't see any of that spelled out. It always, in my experience, if it's not spelled out in the contract, it's not going to happen. And that's why I want to see, he said 60 students. Let's see that spelled out in the contract.
I'm really, I'm positive on this. I'm very positive, but I think there are a couple of more questions. And I think we have to really have our ducks lined up, because what happens when Emeril Lagasse or we have an opportunity to sponsor, do a sponsorship through him for our culinary arts students. So if we get it right now and we can navigate, even if we have to navigate some of the political winds to the benefit of our students, and members will have to make that decision because we have 7 different districts. And I can tell you right now, there are about 3 or 4 districts that members will not be too pleased about this, in my opinion, that the constituents will not be pleased about this. And it will create some fodder. So I think we want to just make sure that, if we look at the shires versus, is it Wellington University in Peoria, the test for giving money, I think we meet both criteria, and I think this is a Supreme Court decision in Arizona, or at least it was not a Superior Court. I think it's good, but I'm not an attorney, and I think we just need, just a little bit more, but I kind of like this.
I would, and I agree with the points you make and considerations that we should have. I think it is important to note that the sponsorship is with Phoenix Raceway.
Yes.
So it's not with the national brand of NASCAR. It's a community partner here in the West Valley, Phoenix Raceway. And I understand that there will be a connection made, but our sponsorship is with Phoenix Raceway. And again, we have engaged on a smaller scale in sponsorships of events or with West-MEC or Best of the West activities, other things like that. This again is more comprehensive, but it also has a greater return to those work-based learning experiences for students. I will let Dr. Spurgeon decide whether or not we could revisit with legal and come back, given the timeline. I know it's pretty tight.
Yeah,
What about, could the foundation raise funds to pay for this? Because then that kind of takes it out of, it's not public funds, it's money raised through the West-MEC Foundation.
Yeah, but it's still part of West-MEC, and
It's a separate entity. It's
Yeah, but it's still, I think there's an agent opinion on this that took place. I don't have that opinion, and this is where we need Mrs. Siegel, that it's still under the umbrella.
So the specific funds where we collect money for facility usage or leases, that's within the overall West-MEC budget, but it is a different source of funding. The Alliance would be different, but they would not be in a position to fund this sponsorship.
Yeah. So with the community funds, I think it's still under the umbrella of the Arizona Treasury and so on. So that's where the potential, gift issue is, but I don't see this as a gifting problem. I really don't, because I think there are good benefits that the district is getting and our students are getting. And I think it meets that 2-point test based on the Shire decision. But again, Mr. Maris, you're the attorney. I can't, but I think we just need a little bit more of a look on this.
And just to be fair, I will tell you, because the big race weekend is coming up, this is time sensitive. I do know they have other educational agencies that they're going to move on to. So it's certainly something we could look at next year or in future years, but this is a rather fleeting opportunity. I think
So when you mean
fair to
fleeting,
say that.
how fast?
We would have to talk to them, and I defer to Dr. Spurgeon. I just know that they're really on the bubble to get, they recognize the changing tide and they want a trade school. So whether it's West-MEC or EBIT or UTI, we're number one, but they have a list that they're gonna move on to.
And I would say, just practically speaking, the beginning of November being when these things occur. If you work backwards from that date to get design, to get the vehicle wrap, to get the leads at the track lined up with our work-based learning folks to really coordinate student engagement, they have an expectation that we're going to be able to provide them with an answer tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be, though, the way this contract is written now, it looks like all sponsorship. I don't see all the student benefit. And so if this goes to the media, the question is, you have a 10-second response on the media. How come you spend $155,000 on promoting your name on at a racetrack? They haven't even given you the opportunity, and because it's about a soundbite on the news. And that's what my concern would be.
Could we also, could we vote on this option with the option of us taking the recommendations you have in these 3 or 4 areas to make those changes pending legal approval, then giving me the authorization just to sign that if those options are accepted? For example, the confidentiality piece, the thou shalt, wills versus mays, and then the listing of those activities, or maybe 3 or 4 things in that we can.
Yeah, because I think, and just explain to them, we're not asking for anything new. We just need to have it spelled out because this is a public record. And right now, the public record looks like we're buying advertising. And that's not gonna, that's not gonna fly as much as you start to list all the student opportunity.
Right.
And then it looks like, hey, this is a much better deal. And so I would defer to the rest of the board. Mr. Ramirez, you're the attorney.
Initial drafting of the agreement, I don't know that they fully understood what we would be willing or able to produce in terms of student engagement. So they weren't prepared to write that into it, but we could certainly, I think.
Would be okay with it though.
Yeah, I think they would be.
Things that we need to modify, pending those modifications being accepted by Phoenix Raceway, then authorizing me to be able to sign that, that would probably work.
Even in their bringing the cars to the campus to work in the labs and stuff. They've committed to that. So having that in there is nothing more than it adds value to the contract for a public viewing. It's really what I'm thinking. Does that make?
Yeah, I also think this is an incredible opportunity, especially for our students and just elevating West-MEC in the community. I think it's going to excite a lot of potential future business partners and validate the great work that the administration and the teachers are doing here. Definitely is going to benefit the students. However, I do also have the same concerns Mr. Prangarelli and Mr. Straka have mentioned. It's kind of almost loosely written. I imagine this was all written by their attorneys and not our attorneys. How much of the back and forth went on. One concern is if we have such a tight deadline, will we really be able to take full advantage of it this semester? Or are we going to lose out on these next 4 months? Because now that's going to put additional pressure on administration and instructors to try to come up quickly with how are our students going to engage and participate. The other thing too is I'd like to see a little bit more of what they're going to perform on. I don't see a whole lot on their performance. There's a lot of, Mr. Straka mentioned good faith, and doesn't concern me as much because I see that language quite a bit. But I would really like to see more like the numbers, like the 60 students, a little bit more specificity as to what type of programs they're willing to engage their students in, because I imagine once we start asking for more stuff, they may step back and be like, well, let's review this with our attorneys and see what our liabilities are. So it might not be a quick back and forth where we sign this and then they come back and say, okay, yeah, we accept all your requests and we'll include them in the contract. I don't know.
When did we get this in our hands? This is recent, right?
Probably during the summertime, it was finalized from the attorney, probably late summer.
It's
after the
Okay, so it hasn't been long.
No, not too long.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things I think is going to make this go quickly is the items that we talked about that really weren't the contract that were added, they were added after our conversation with them after the contract that already been submitted. And many of the ideas that we're talking about right now actually came from them as they began to look at our program, saying, we think we can involve this group and that group and this group. The plan is ready to be deployed on the ground. We're just waiting for the board to say yes. To be able to do that. So I don't think we're going to miss out on any opportunity in the program. I don't believe so either, but I think Straka is correct. We can remove the confidentiality. We can say what thou shalt is going to do. We can list to be included, but not limited to
those programs.
Exactly, including but not limited to, and list some programs and number of students for each of those programs. And we can, and they probably need to be, and then also define the whole liability issue. Do we have to carry $1 million of liability for each student that's there? 60 students, that's $60 million worth of liability times 3 days. What does that look like? Does the trust cover that? And
But I think it's in the 60 students per day should be in there as well. But again, looking at visibility, that shows return on investment.
yeah, and that's exactly, but I like the idea. I think it's incredible. But like I said, I just want to make sure that, as Dr. Pringarelli said, we have the right cover and the contract will be the telling piece. And so, like you said, put the 60 students in there, even on the who pays for the wrap and how many trips it's gonna, a minimum of this many appearances in the state, just because, they can, 2 appearances and we paid for it is not if they're gonna pay for it, a minimum.
And as far as the tickets is, if they're not gonna be given to the school for us to give out to students or staff or whoever, then if they're gonna go directly to the recipient, then they shouldn't even be in the contract because we'll have nothing to do with it.
Who those recipients are.
What's that?
We would provide them with recipients.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
So we would tell them who, and they would issue it to them because it's all electronic.
It's all done
okay.
through mobile devices, so we give the name and the cell phone number, and then the raceway sends tickets to that person.
So I don't know, I'm open to, and hopefully I won't get a call tomorrow morning from Mrs. Siegel with regard to, I don't know if you could do that, Dr. Pingarelli, but I'm open to a motion that would amend with those provisions into it, so you could move forward if someone wants to make that motion.
I have it typed out. If you guys want to hear it, to see if I've included anything, stop me if I've forgotten anything.
Please.
Motion to approve agreement with Phoenix Speedway doing business as Phoenix Raceway and West-MEC to become the official technical school of Phoenix Raceway, and modifying the agreement to strike confidentiality on page 11, good faith verbiage on page 17, spelling out minimum number of students participating in work-based opportunities, and spell out car show cost responsibility, and authorize the superintendent to sign the agreement and any other affiliated documents. Did I miss anything?
Confidentiality is page 10.
Thank you. Confidentiality on page 10.
How about the type of participation that the students will be? able to
Yeah,
do?
so I think goes back to in the what is this called? Exhibit C. Other benefits, I think it's striking the wording A and then including but not limited to, as we said, and list the programs and a total number of 60 students. And if we can break that out by program, that would be great. And same thing with the section B, the good faith sponsor students educational and fun day at the Raceway. How many students is that open for? We just need to really, it's a big opportunity for students. Let everybody see how big it is.
Okay, so then I have spelling out minimum number of students participating in work-based opportunities, updating exhibit B and C as discussed, and spell out car show cost responsibility.
Yep.
So we modify it to work-based learning opportunities. Does that make a difference? Work-based learning opportunities.
That's what it is.
Yes.
Mhm,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it would be if those amendments can be adopted in the contract, then the board would authorize the superintendent to sign it. I think that needs to be kind of explicitly stated.
So motion to approve the agreement and modifying the agreement and authorize the superintendent. So you're saying you're gonna motion to approve it with the modifications.
With the modifications.
With the modifications.
We're directing the superintendent and the team to make these work with, because the lawyers are gonna have to get in a room that it's just what lawyers do.
And so if we put the work-based learning, that won't limit us to which programs we can include.
Shouldn't. Programs, that's a requirement for all of our programs.
Okay.
Did you also want to include the or did we eliminate already the option of having a concession stand, a CTSO?
Oh,
or
yeah, it'd be
CTSO?
nice to have the concession stand if we could. I don't know if that's a possibility, but
It's a very lucrative contract out there, and I know that they've had a recent change, so.
That would be a different organization.
but it doesn't hurt to ask.
Does not hurt to ask.
You can ask, I don't think that should be a killer though.
It's hard to ask if we can't get it, I get it, but you know, if we're doing a sponsorship, we may as well ask for it.
Maybe selling corn nuts.
Yeah, the other piece that, and Chris just whispered to me here, that it's would be nice to avoid is any. They wouldn't be obviously able to work at any stand that had liquor or alcohol or anything like that anyway, so.
No, the one inside the track, they sell a lot of T-shirts. That's where all the race car drivers buy the T-shirts for their kids when they're at the race.
And I'll just clarify on the signage, because the contract as it has right now says at its own expense, the sponsor will do those things, so that there is clarity there right now. Are we saying that? We
The
would like
sponsor will
that
do what things?
at our own expense?
Currently, the show car is on us. The contract says the show cars.
That's what I didn't see was not clear to me.
That's spelled out already. Then we'll suggest changes and get people together and.
And then do we get to use their logo on our website?
We do.
They specified which ones.
Yeah, there's specific ones that we can use. It's CJ pointed to, we can't use the NASCAR. It's specifically Phoenix International Raceway. There's 2 logos that we're allowed to use on shirts, on collateral, those kind of things.
And then Dr. Spurgeon and CJ, you'll give us cover with the governor and a few other people saying, hey, we're doing this. We'll figure something out. I just don't want to have it while you're working on the other things, just kind of. And if you just have a conversation, follow up with an email and hey, here's the contract we're working on.
So someone wanted to, I think Ms. Brown read the motion.
Sorry, just have a question here on the show car. I'm not a big NASCAR fan or anything like that, so the show car, so we're presenting the show car. What exactly does that mean? I was like, is it their show car we're just presenting, or we're also providing the show car? Oh, is it their car?
It's the Phoenix International Raceway show car.
Okay.
This is what it looks like today. What's gonna, like, our arrows are gonna be here on the back, perhaps, you know, to take up a lot more, and you'll have faster way forward and that kind of stuff.
Okay,
So
they provided the show car.
in addition, the hauler will be branded for West-MEC. So as it goes around town, people will see the hauler.
Okay.
So the hood is the most valuable part of the car, if we could get that.
Orange, right?
There will be orange on it, right? It's co-branded with them and us, so there will be orange on it. And Chris will get to work with their design team. So the hood being very important. I think Mr. Cook heard that.
Yes.
So
We're hoping, I don't know if a faster way forward is gonna get on there any fashion, but what an appropriate term.
Yeah.
For West-MEC and for Phoenix.
We even thought about trying to involve our collision program and the wrapping of the vehicle and what that might look like, so.
Actually do the work.
But the hood is the highest priced endorsement area, so
Yeah,
that's why they go for the hood if possible.
So we're looking for motion.
So I'll motion, do I gotta say the whole thing?
You can say it's read by Ms.
It's read by Ms. Brown.
And I'll second. Hey, when I open it up, you guys, so you guys will see a little pop up on the screens. There you go. There's.
Did Mr. Miglioriano have any comments? Because
Yes, Mr. Migliorino, do you have any?
Well, I wanted this and a T-shirt. I'm good.
He's good, okay. So, seeing any further discussion? Seeing none, members, please cast your votes.
Did you get the pop up? You want to give me a vote, yes or no? Yes. Mr. Migliorino?
Oh,
You
I'm
did
sorry,
yes or
got
no?
it.
Okay, I already voted.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's not appearing on my screen.
Thank you.
So we see, yes.
And can you scroll it? Darren, can you scroll the screen? There we go, keep going. There you go.
Okay, so thank you, members. Motion passes unanimously.
Sorry, Ms. Wiley wasn't here. She would have loved this.
Final item is the new policy. And Ms. Mapes, you are up again. Thank you.
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At the last meeting, we presented policy JLDB for your consideration. Is the restraint and seclusion policy. And so in order for us to be properly trained, make sure we have policies and procedures in place in case we do have students that may have a restraint accommodation in your IEP, for example, we are bringing this to the board for a second read. So unless you have any questions, and I also have this time in the audience as well.
My only question is, do we have to hire a mental health person based on some of these policies, or do we have the right training and we can move on?
And I'll let Shelley talk about the training.
Good evening, and thank you for the question. These policies for restraint and seclusion are based on things that are specifically written into the individual education plan of particular students. So it's under their guidance of the school that would tell us if we need to engage in these activities or not. So we would not have to bring on our own professional here in a mental health capacity.
Okay, thanks.
Any members, any other questions on this?
Hearing no more questions, I'll move that we approve as presented.
Okay, so Mr. Straka has moved that motion that we approve this. Is there a second? Okay, and Ms. Prism second. Okay, any
Second.
seconds? Oh, okay, well,
There you go.
all right, we're all set. Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. So we have a first and a second. And members, hearing further discussion, please cast your vote.
Mr. Migliorino, a yes or no, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, members. Motion passes unanimously. Final, we're down to the home stretch. Members' future agenda items. Do any members have any future agenda items?
The one agenda item I'd like to add, I think it was mentioned earlier when the discussion about the admission rubric, or if we can have a presentation on that, so we have a better understanding of how that process is and how students are selected into the programs.
And I do have one, and I will work with Dr. Spurgeon to see if this is on the regular agenda or a study session. But without discussion is, we've stated correctly, is we've heard today about different individuals, organizations getting together about workforce and workforce training, and that there's enough space. Not everybody can do everything. However, and I think that's good, you know, if we can all work together, kumbaya. But I think it's also important to recognize is that there is going to be likely a significant enrollment drop in K-12 education in the next 5 years. And I would certainly like West-MEC to look into that. I've also heard that at university levels, it being described as an enrollment cliff. And this may have some implications. So I would like the board or the Dr. Spurgeon and his cabinet to take a look at the competitive landscape. Where are we? who are competitors, who are competitive threats. It's in a public meeting, a report would be public, but I think we have to. I think the last vote we took was very important. But I think we have to look forward. And so I would like to have a presentation on that.
Could I just add something to that? The other thing that would be nice, is something I asked for a few years ago and I never saw, is I think back to Carrington College and some of these trade schools that have gone bankrupt and the students are left holding the bag, they're halfway through and they have nothing. Is there a way we could partner with the state that if somebody goes bankrupt, we could help those students finish their program and the state could pay us for getting the programs through their trade school kind of program? I'm thinking like dental assisting and some of those medical programs that, you know, there's been a few schools that have gone bankrupt and they're left holding the bag. And could we be that white knight? And it goes back to that competitive advantage.
For those programs of which we actually offer.
Right.
And what would that involve? Legislation, IGAs, whatever. So, okay, members, any other future agenda items for consideration?
I'd like to see maybe here how we're really working with our apprenticeship program. Where does that fit in our career tree?
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Thank you. Okay, so
I do have one more.
Mr. Stroh. Okay.
Just if, you know, it's something that happened last July, as I brought up, that we hired people that were under contract and they came to West-MEC. I would like to, you know, just maybe as a board, come back and kind of review what is our hiring policy when people are under contract. I don't think we should do it. And kind of, and Ms. Mays and I have had a little bit of conversation, so I would look for her to kind of present to the board some ways that we can put something in place, because what happened was, I think it was Desert Willow, my co-leader at church, both his physical therapy teachers were hired away by West-MEC in June, but actually one ended up on the August board agenda. That's what I brought up in July, and so they were left without the 6, you know, and it took away their whole program where they had to scramble. So how can we not do that? And we've talked a little bit, so you kind of know, and I'm happy to talk to you if that gets on the agenda.
Hey, members, thank you. And that leads us to the final item of the evening, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Okay. Ron, thank you.
Good night, Mr. Meglarino.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
I think that was a good discussion, Frank, on the speed limit.
I think it's an awesome opportunity.